At Quinn Chapel, we really pride ourselves on making sure that we open up our doors to be a space where you're not only feeling welcome, you don't actually also feel like this is your. Also want to be able to have a space where people are able to come and have conversations about tough issues, right? And right now in our city, everybody knows what's happening. So I won't dwell on that. We all know that there's a mayoral candidate race happening, runoff, right? Again, very legendary stuff happening in the political scene. But one of the things that I have, again, pleasure of being able to and then also lifting up our pastor, Reverend Troy K. Venning. He's going to come and do a prayer. And in partnership, again, being able to open up this space, we cannot start this event without saying thank you to our partners at the NAACP. And actually, even just saying that don't feel right. Let me put some respect on their name. National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, okay? For us to be able to be here in this day, in this room, right? Falling and standing on the shoulders of our elders, it means something. So to just say the NAACP doesn't sound, official enough. So on behalf of Quinn Chapel and National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, I just want to say you are welcome once, welcome twice. You know me in the church, so I got to go there, right? But again, thank you all for coming out to my second home. I hope you feel welcome. I hope you feel like this is a place you can come back to. And we'll have Reverend Troy give us a prayer.
Amen. I don't know why y'all put me up to follow Tyra, but praise the Lord, everybody. Praise the Lord, everybody. I'm somebody's pastor, so this is the day the Lord has made. We are rejoicing. Be glad. Anybody glad that God woke you up and started you on your way? Amen. So we want to welcome you to this space. Quinn Chapel happens to be Chicago's first African-American congregation. As we sit in this space, the property that you sit in today is the longest continually held by African-Americans in the city of Chicago. Since 18, amen, amen goes there. So as a prayer band in 1844, 1847, we become members of the African Methodist Episcopal Church, and God moves us and helps us to get where we need to go. And so we are grateful for what this place has stood for. When you think about the National Association for the Advancement of Culture, we and Quinn and the NAACP stood for the same things, the advancement of colored people. We would be those who would open our doors to some of the stuff that Tyra talked about. So we're grateful for you being here with President Joshua as we partner in this way. Again, this isn't the first time. This won't be the last time. And we are grateful for what God is doing here in this place. Let us pray. God, we love you, honor and adore you. We bless you. We magnify your holy name. We thank you for this day. We thank you for this opportunity for conversation. Our city is in a space where we have to make the right decisions. So God, motivate people to get out and vote. Motivate folks to ask the right questions. Motivate folks to ask the tough questions. And God, you be in the middle of it because we need your help to do it all. Now, God, have your way today. It's in the matchless name of the Creator, Jesus Christ, and Jesus Christ. All of God's children did say, amen.
One of the things that Reverend Troy didn't say, he also grew up at Quinn. So I know, again, as someone is leading this church, is leading this space, we don't take any of this lightly. To be able to gather here and do so in a way that is going to advance not only our lives, but the lives of our community is very important to us. So again, thank you, Pastor Troy, for that prayer. I would like to introduce you all to president of the Southside branch of the NAACP. Ms. Rose Joshua is presently serving as the president of the NAACP Southside chapter, as she's been practicing law in the state of Illinois since 1988. I said since 1988. Applause goes there. Been concentrating on civil litigation in state courts, and Ms. Joshua is licensed to practice before the United States Court of Appeal for Veteran Claims in Washington, D.C. She completed her undergraduate work through history and political science at the University of Central Arkansas, and shortly thereafter was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the United States Army for 4 years, with the highest rank achieved as captain. She obtained a Juris Doctorate degree at Southern University in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and then moved to Chicago in 1987. Attorney Joshua, we welcome you to come up to the podium.
Thank you so much for that grand introduction. I'm so happy to be here at Quinn Chapel. This is not the first time that the NAACP has been in this space. This is very, very important. You have two institutions, the NAACP and you have the church. And the church is an institution as well. And the way I see it is we only got the NAACP and the church. So this is why that is important. And it's important for us to get together with the churches in our community, because we need to do the advocacy around the disparities in our communities. And we need that. And we're going to have today 2 presentations on voter suppression. And we're going to have another presentation on education. Now we have our 2 candidates who are closely connected to education in Chicago. We're going to hear from an educator that has been teaching school and advocating for teachers and children for a very, very long time. So I'm going to tell you now the mission of the NAACP is. Our mission is to achieve equity, political rights, and social inclusion by advancing policies and practices that expand human and civil rights, eliminate discrimination, and accelerate the well-being, education, and economic security of Black people and all persons of color. And I want to say this again. A lot of times I go to events and people say, well, what the NAACP, what are they doing? We don't see them. Well, and I say, you know what my response is? I say, NAACP. The NAACP meets every month. You need to go to our Facebook page, because every month we paste on our page where our meetings will be. Then you can call us. You can call us at 773-429-9830. And then we have an email address, info@naacp.org. Now, at this point, yes, I am the president of the Chicago Southside, and I'm very, very proud to have been in this position since 2008. However, job, I can't do this by myself. I'm not just the president, but we have an executive committee that consists of at least 16 people who help us do the work of the NAACP. And also, as a part of our governance body, then we have 17 standing committees to do the work of the NAACP. We have our first vice president here, Attorney Chelsea Robinson, and she chairs the Criminal Justice Committee. We also have our second vice president who is here, who will be doing a presentation on suppression. And we have people at our table. We have our treasurer, Linda Batchelor, who does an excellent job at doing the treasurer's work. And we have a member of our executive committee that is helping us with administrative. We have Britt Sharif, and I want to thank all of you, all of the volunteers that brought this event together, and also our new member, Dahlia Goree, is here. And always, when people come to our events, we have a little bit of something to eat. And that woman back there has been my friend for many years. And she has been a member of NAACP long as I've been president, O.C. Nicholson, and she's responsible for the food back table. So if I'm missing anyone, and my friend Reuben, who's been around for years, and so I'm just really grateful and thankful to even do this. So I'm going to, I was supposed to be doing the welcome. Was that welcome enough? Okay, so I am followed by, I think the next item on our program is a presentation that will be done by our second vice president, Pam Sangdon. Why is it important for African Americans to vote? Why is it important for African Americans to vote? We have two candidates who wants to be the mayor of the city of Chicago. Oh, do you see them? They're not here. They weren't able to be here. But I think that Quinn Chapel being who it is, an institution, NAACP being who it is, somebody should have been in the seat. So you know now what we got to do. We have work to do? Yes, we do. Okay, and so let's start now. When is our next meeting, Mr. Secretary? Third Saturday. I need for every one of you to be present because I forgot the guy's name, but he said something about somebody don't like us. Well, we're not really asking you to like us, okay? We're gonna do with what we got to do because we believe that we are significant. Thank you very much. Pam.
Thank you very much, President Joshua, for rousing up the crowd for me. A great warm-up act. Thank you so much. I am also an attorney for the Wabash Water Reclamation District, but I also have the proud honor of saying I'll be sworn in as a judge Monday. So to be able to come before you and talk about the importance of vote is near and dear to my heart. Hopefully I'll be able to advance the slides correctly. So why is it important for African Americans to vote? Oh no, let's see. Here we go. Historically, voting was not a right. It was a privilege for white men with property. They knew power to shape how they wanted to live their lives, to choose those who were like-minded that would create policies that protected their wealth and interests. So too it is with us. Voting determines who will make policy decisions that shape our daily lives. Full voter participation is essential to ensuring elected leaders and policy decisions meet the needs of the community and protect African American interests and resources. Now more than ever, it is crucial that we exercise this right to vote. Social justice uprisings and the suffering economy are the consequences of voting for those who want to maintain their wealth and privilege and create laws and policies more African Americans voted. I'm sorry. 2 million more African Americans voted in 2008 than had voted in the last 4 elections. Turnout among young Black voters was 55%, 8 percentage points higher than 4 years earlier. For the first time ever, the Black voter turnout rate in a presidential election exceeded the white voter turnout rate, 66.2% versus 64.1%. And we're way past due. Let's use that same power to vote to protect our interests and to help to shape the lives that we want to live. Let's see. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. Okay. Here we go. Ooh. Politicians know we have the power. All right, they know it, which is why they work so hard to suppress our vote. Since after the Civil War, when Black men were given the right to vote, there has been a relentless fight to swing the pendulum from voting being a privilege to becoming a right. So voter suppression has always been a tactic used to attempt to discourage or prevent certain voters from exercising their right to vote. Voting should be as easy and convenient as possible, but across the U.S., too many politicians are passing laws making it harder to cast a ballot. The goal is to manipulate political outcomes by stifling our voices. Types of voter suppression include voter registration restrictions, such as restricting the terms and requirements of registration. That's one of the most common forms of voter suppression. That can include requiring documents to prove citizenship or identification and limiting the window in which voters can register. Luckily, Illinois has same-day voting registration and online registration, and it has the automatic voter registration, which allows people to opt in when they get their driver's license. So Illinois is one of the most progressive states in voting rights and making sure that people are allowed to register and making it as easy as possible to register. So even when you go to get your driver's license or to renew it, you have the opportunity there to register to vote or change your registration if needed. Another way is changing voter ID laws, such as requiring an ID to cast your ballot. Illinois does not request identification at polling places, or they shouldn't. There have been instances where people have asked for your ID, and sometimes that happens, for example, when you have not voted in a long time. Another way is by cutting the amount of time, shortening the voter registration or ability to vote, such as, you have to have a good excuse to do early voting, or you have to have a good excuse to do an absentee ballot. Illinois allows no excuse early voting. So if you want to vote early, you don't need to give a reason such as I'll be out of town or I have to take care of someone. Again, Illinois is one of the more progressive states in protecting your rights to vote. And I believe that's primarily because it's a democratic state. Also, Illinois allows no excuse absentee voting to all voters, so you don't need to give a good excuse if you want to vote absentee. Another way is by discouraging vote by mail. We saw that in the last election, right, when Trump wanted to discourage that. Voter fraud has been proven virtually non-existent. And widespread voter fraud that was alleged by President Trump, for example, is a complete myth. Yet there is supposed widespread voter fraud is consistently used as justification for voting restrictions that suppress the votes of African Americans. Another way is by limiting the number of drop boxes. Drop boxes are particularly important for voters who may not receive their mail-in ballots in time to mail them back. Drop boxes are safe and secure tools for voters to return their mail ballots to election officials. And when adequately placed in densely populated communities, drop boxes ensure voters can hand-deliver their ballots safely with assurance that they will be counted. It is unconscionable to consider limiting drop boxes during a deadly pandemic. So you'll remember when we had the pandemic, there was the drop boxes were available. When the focus should be on expanding safe voting options, there should not be reasons to restrict them. Another way that there's voter suppression are mass purges of the voter rolls. Cleaning up the voter rolls can be a responsible part of election administration because many people move, they die, they become ineligible to vote for many other reasons. And so it is the responsibility of the state to purge the rolls of those types in those instances. But sometimes states use this process as a method of mass disenfranchisement by purging eligible voters from rolls for illegitimate reasons, or basing purging on inaccurate data, and often without adequate notice to the users. That was one of the methods used in Stacey Abrams' Georgia election, where they purged about 55,000 voters and African-American voters from the polls, which arguably could have made a very much difference in whether or not she won her race for governor. Disenfranchising or stripping ex-felons of their right to vote. A felony conviction can come with drastic consequences, including the loss of your right to vote. Due to racial bias in the criminal justice system, felony disenfranchisement laws disproportionately affect Black people who often face harsher sentences than white people for the same offenses. However, Illinois does restore the voting rights immediately upon completion of a prison sentence. So again, Illinois is one of those more progressive states. And those on parole and probation retain their right to vote. And lastly, redrawing district lines that determine the weight of your vote. Every 10 years, states redraw district lines based on the population gathered in the census, which is very important as to why you should participate in the census. Legislators use these district lines to allocate representation in Congress and state legislators. When redistricting is conducted properly, district lines are redrawn to reflect population changes and racial diversity. However, sometimes redistricting is used as a tool to manipulate the outcome of elections. And you may notice that you are now in a different aldermanic ward, and that is due to the redistricting, which is based on the number of people in that particular ward. And if that particular ward, the numbers increased or went down because people did not participate in the census, then you may be moved to another ward. And so that is a consequence of sometimes us not participating in the census. These measures, participating in the census, participating in voting, affect us on a day-to-day basis. And sometimes we don't realize that. And so that's why we want to impress upon you the importance of being civically engaged, voting, participating in the census. Another way of suppression is voter intimidation, such as physically blocking polling places, using threatening language in or near a polling place, yelling at people or calling people names while they are online to vote, disrupting or interrogating voters, looking over people's shoulders while they're voting, questioning voters about their political choices, citizenship status, or criminal record, displaying false or misleading signage. These laws may outright target people of color, students, elderly, people with disability. They usually work in tandem with each other to substantially dilute the voting power of those they're seeking to vote. What should you do if you have experienced voting suppression or intimidation tactics? You can notify a poll worker at the actual voting site. You can report intimidation to the Election Protection Hotline or the Board of Elections. You can call the U.S. Department of Justice. All these numbers are available online. Nationally, the NAACP, on a national level, we partner with the Election Protection, which is a group of organizations formed to ensure that all voters have an equal opportunity to participate in the political process. We often, as a national organization, litigate and regarding inaccuracies or suppression that happen prior to Election Day and on Election Day. The NAACP also sets standards by advocating for no-fault absentee voting, same-day registration. Locally, the NAACP Chicago Southside branch holds forums, such as this one, to allow the public to make informed choices about which candidate they want to vote for, to impress upon the public the importance of voting, and educate the public on referendum that appear on the ballots. In conclusion, it's just not enough to vote. We have to remind others of what's at stake and urge them to use their power at the ballot. Our call to action today is to encourage you to vote. I'm probably speaking to the choir here because you're here for a forum to learn about the candidates and issues, but what you can do is to encourage others to vote. And we ask you also to volunteer. President Joshua explained that we always need help. We just don't need financial resources, we need human resources as well. So we need you to vote. Don't allow anyone to turn you away from voting. The stakes are just too high. Again, volunteer to be a poll monitor, to poll watch. Join the NAACP Southside branch by going to our website, naacpcss.org. So that's the end of the presentation. I hope that this has encouraged you to continue to be civically engaged. If you have any, does anyone have any questions before we move on to the next portion of our program? No? Okay, well, thank you, and, well, thank you very much. We hope that you'll stay. We have a speaker that is going to speak about issues that are relevant to our community. But first, and then we will go into our aldermanic panel. So we ask that you hold tight just for a few more minutes while we set up for the next speaker, have some more refreshments, and then we will get started. Thank you so much. Yeah, what'd you say? Yeah. I didn't say that. Oh, that's fine. Okay. Yeah.
Well done,
Oh,
Job, well done.
thank you, thank you. Thanks. Oh, I have to get this back. Yeah. No, they weren't, they're not coming. Yeah, they couldn't make it there. It was an 11 o'clock. And we had confirmed with Brandon Johnson, but he just couldn't, you know, they said that he wouldn't be able to make it
So when
today.
are you all going to be going to 3 o'clock? You have this scheduled for 11?
There's a, 1 o'clock starts the aldermanic.
Oh, I should come back.
Yeah, but it's
And you only
not
have-
too much time
don't have
left.
both the candidates?
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, you want to take that back to the front?
Okay.
So a lot of,
So these are just the candidates who are in runoff.
yeah, but I see that their opponents are not here.
Some of they did not, right, they didn't confirm. Yeah. Mr. Hall, however, is supposed to be coming.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, well.
Be your advocate for the time they will tell you. Deal with freedom.
It just didn't feel right.
Good to see you.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, what's up, man?
Hey guys, we're going to get ready to start again, and I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping, and I just didn't say enough about Quinn Chapel and Pastor Troy and Chris and Antonio and Miss Lydia and Andre and the volunteers from Quinn Chapel who helped to put this together. They are so wonderful. They are. And this is a wonderful church. I mean, don't you feel so comfortable and cool and collected? It's just wonderful. So I just want to say thank you. I just want to say yes, 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 yes. And so we're going to get on and we're going to get the show going. And I'm getting ready to introduce a friend of mine who who I've worked with in the struggle for a long time, Rosita Chitanda. And I remember when I first started out, and one of the issues that we were working on was the school closing. So we're going to have a conversation with Rosita about education in Chicago. And we know that both candidates for mayor, they actually are a part of or have been involved in education. And I know you've heard some of the things that they've talked about in regards to what the schools, what need to happen in the school. But all we want, all we want is quality education. We want what everybody else wants. Are we gonna get it? Yeah. And so we're gonna talk about that, and so I'm gonna give you a little background on Rosita. Rosita Chitanda is the founder of CAUSE, Coalition and Alliance of Urban School Educators. This is a national caucus that advocates for public school teachers. She also is the founding president of Teach for Future, Inc., a curriculum-based organization providing innovative curriculum that is aimed to provide culturally based social, emotional learning experiences for inner city youth. In addition, she is chair of CPS's South Shore Community Action Council and displaced teacher chair for the NAACP. She began her career as a public school teacher in Chicago in 1986 and taught for the Archdiocese of Chicago. So with no further ado, I introduce Miss Rosita Chitanda.
Good afternoon. Is it afternoon yet? But good afternoon. Thank you. I want to talk a little bit about my organization and why I started it. I started CAUSE Teachers as a result of the mass termination of Black educators. I noticed, I was working at a school not far from here, at Williams. And we had such a wonderful school. And of course, one of the best experiences I've ever had working with students. And we just had this very good environment. And one day, I was in my classroom and I was teaching. And I was talking to my students and we were getting ready to test. And you know all of this, and we talk about that because that's what Ballas brought to us. A lot of accountability and a lot of testing, and any teacher knows. So we were just testing, testing, testing. Well, I was in the classroom, and one of the students, they were acting up a little after lunch, which they always, after lunch is a whole different ball game. So I said, you guys need to be quiet. We've got to get to work. We've got to get these scores up, and you guys need to settle down. And I said, because, they could come in here and shut the school down. And I don't know why I said that, because they were there in 15 minutes. And I looked out my window, because it was in the year of 911. And I looked out of my window, and there were 3 prison buses, not paddy wagons, outside our school. And I'm like, what is going on? Is there a bomb? We're under attack. Well, about 100 people in suits, nice young people from the board, started running through our building. Now, mind you, we were the first school to ever close. And so I said, what's going on? And one of the teachers said, oh, well, something is happening. And so as they were running through the building, they said, actually, NTA, the new school, which is right over here, they were building that school. And their staff was in the basement of our building like for 3 years, and we didn't know what was going on. They had a whole staff down in the basement getting ready for NTA. Now, what happened is at the end of the day, we were called down to the office, and we were told that our school was closing. And it was so funny because I had done the Montgomery bus boycott and the whole thing for Black History, and my students were ready. It was like 2 o'clock. I was like, get the signs, we're going down. And we had our little protest, and they were on the cover. Those were the students on the cover of the paper. But so we left Williams, but I remember telling the teachers that day, I said, something is wrong with this. This is not about education. This is something else going on, and they're going to be using the test scores to close all of our schools. I just felt it in my spirit. Sometimes people have discernment. People talk about being a Christian, but with that comes discernment. You can feel it in your spirit when something is right and something is wrong. So discernment is what I had on that day. And I left Williams, and I went on, because they said they were going to be closing schools all along State Street. So I left Williams that day, and I looked for a school that was far out of harm's way, or all the way over east and all the way south, because they had already told us. Now, I was in the meeting when they announced RIN 2010. And it was Arnie Duncan that was there when they made the announcement. And from that point on, I began to keep records and document and follow along what is really going on here. And every year I would look and I would see the mass termination of Black teachers. We were losing 1.7 to 2.0 annually, Black teachers in our group, along with our students. So we were being purged out of the system. And I'm just teaching, I'm watching, and every year I'm saying, wow, this is really going on. And we're losing all of our teachers and our Black students to the tune of over 200,000 Black children out of the system. And right now, 14,000 African American teachers were lost. And so right now, our population in the late 90s, under our president, Jackie Vaughn, we were a 38 to 40,000 member union. They'll give or take a little bit. Black teachers were 45% of that. So now, which is, we say about, on the generous side, we would say 18 to 19,000. Now, Black teachers are 20% of a 21,000 member union, which is approximately 4,000. Now, this is what has happened since the late 90s. And so that is a key thing that we talk about. And one of the things I was just telling one of my cause members, Vanessa, right there, we are educators. We did not get in this fight to fight politically. We need to be with our children. That is what our God-given talent is. But you have all of these teachers, and they're out here, and they're fighting, and our union has done absolutely nothing to help us. In fact, our union went to Springfield in 2010 under Karen Lewis and the current caucus, and they removed seniority rights, and I want to talk about that. I was going to do this thing here, but I would rather talk. Okay, I would rather talk because there's a lot of information on there that you don't need to hear. But I'm just going to share this with you. In 2010, as we organized, and after I saw this just purge of black teachers, and I knew that they were coming for everyone, and especially me, because I was telling everybody about it, and I'm sitting in a lunchroom telling, in 2000, so I definitely became a target. And so that was okay, because I tell people, it was never meant for me to work for CPS for 34 years and retire. God has something different. And he placed me in that spot for a reason. And because of that reason, I've written 2 books that I'm publishing. One on the history of African American educators going all the way back to the 1600s. When we got here, we were always educating our people. It's a documentary, you will be seeing it. I've been doing a whole lot of things. And my second book, Chicago-Style Education Organizing. And I wish it would have been out now because you would have learned so much. So I want to move on and talk a little bit about what happened and how we lost our teachers. Everything that is happening to teachers, our union must sign off on. It isn't a one-shot deal where CPS just comes in and does whatever it wants. Our union has to agree. Now, because of Jackie Vaughn, who we all love, and when Jackie left our union, it was intact. Because of Jackie, I'm here today. I didn't have to go and beg for a job, a teaching job. I didn't have to go fight. All I did was apply. And I was hired because Jackie had fought the fight. Jackie had done what she was supposed to do to ensure that teachers, no matter what color you are, that our union contract protected you, no matter what color you were. Whatever your condition was, you got the protection of the Chicago Teachers Union, and there was nothing anybody could do. People were going around saying it would take, I don't know what it would take to get rid of a teacher. Yeah, it took a lot, but not today. And the reason why it takes nothing to get rid of a teacher is because our union in the late 90s agreed to get rid of what we call system-wide seniority. That means when my school closed on the south side, there's no reason to close my school, because if I've got tenure and seniority, I'm running up on the north side. I got the power to bump any young teacher, white, black, whatever they are, out of their spot. Now, Mayor Daley knew that. He knew that if I closed this school, then all those black teachers gonna run up north and bump the people I want in the system out, the young people. So he said, we gotta do something. He lured Debbie Lynch, then the president, down to Springfield. All of a sudden, we don't have any seniority where we can move, because she signed away and agreed to remove it from the contract. Things that were really hard fought. Jackie gave her life and died fighting to put this stuff in this contract. At 56 years old, dying, because it was a monumental fight. It was removed. And that allowed CPS to then the mayor to come in and say, bye. So that was what happened in the beginning. Our second president, Marilyn Stewart, let's give it to Marilyn. She tried to rectify what had happened, and she started giving teachers tenure. And 3-4 years, and you got tenure. Well, tenure means protection. You don't have seniority, system-wide seniority, but guess what? You got tenure. And that tenure allows you that when that school closes, you're going to go into the reassignment pool. And that little reassignment pool, you can be in there for 3 years, but guess what? You get paid the first year, your full salary. You get second year, 80%. You get the third year, you can work as a sub, but you need to find a job within 2 years. So you are still a CPS employee because you're going into the reassignment pool. Now, as you go into this reassignment pool, then you're protected again. That's what Maryland gave us. She gave us the tenure rights and the protection under the reassignment pool. I have to say this. I was really sad when I went to Maryland because at that time we didn't understand social media, and neither did she. There was a new movement coming up, and that new movement, and one of the things is that under Debbie Lynch we had already lost 4,500 black teachers by that time. So then we move over into 2010, and we're doing the organizing at Operation Push. We're meeting with black teachers, the group, and then we decide that what we're going to do at that point is that we are going to organize and take a union because we met this group of people. They filed a lawsuit on behalf of black teachers, and this is the core caucus that's currently running the Chicago Teachers Union now. So we organize with them. We hope to get justice for black teachers because they're filing lawsuits. And I was like, wow, these are white people and they're really filing and helping and doing all of this, so let's join forces. Unfortunately, something happened. And what happened was in Springfield, another move was made. We had what we call seniority rights and economic layoffs. And with those seniority rights, whenever there's an economic layoff, remember that little teacher pool I talked about? You go in there for 3 years. That, with our president, Karen Lewis, decided that she would go to Springfield and remove, under a bill called Senate Bill 7, our seniority and economic layoffs. Now, what that did to teachers, it sent them straight to the unemployment line. When I read the bill, I gasped. I remember saying, oh my God, they're gonna all be fired. And I would go to the House of Delegates and say, read this legislation. Everything's been gutted. Everything's been removed. And you all are all in trouble. 2 weeks after the strike, Rahm Emanuel closed 50 schools through to underutilization that was considered a what? Economic layoff. So we got this 6,000 black teachers fired as a result of removing this right. Now, I'm not the union president, I'm just a teacher, and I know what's going down. So that is how we lost 14,000 black teachers in the city of Chicago. And let me say this. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about what goes on nationally. During this process, there was a national move because Arnie Duncan was here, and then he went to be CEO. And the same REN 2010 program was then kind of morphed into Race to the Top. And Race to the Top was kind of like REN 2010 on steroids going national. So we were Chicago Alliance of Urban School Educators, and then we became Coalition and Alliance because we had so many teachers in other states that have gone through this. So with that, there were 100,000 African American teachers nationwide terminated as a result of mass firings. Similar to what we went, Chicago is ground zero for this. So we want to talk a little bit about what happened in New Orleans. People keep talking about that. What happened in New Orleans was also happening all over in Washington. It was happening in Detroit. It was happening in Cleveland under this model of charter schools and proliferation of charter schools. So all this was going on nationally, not just in New Orleans. So that's a myth. So I wanted to share some of that information with you. So as you go out and you're making your vote, I want you to understand a little bit of backdrop at what happened, who's responsible, and that's up for you to decide. But one of the things that is dear to our heart as teachers, and I said we have to talk about this. In the years that I worked in the inner city, and the wealth of information that went out the door with people, I did not get into education as a job. I went into education to find solutions to help our children. As a mother of 3 sons and a daughter, I was a parent, and I have sons. And I'm gonna tell you, that's one of the most difficult things for a black parent to have, are black boys. And in order to protect my sons, I had to learn for their survival. My daughter, it wasn't as hard. You know, I come from a family of almost all girls, and I said to my, we have one brother, and he's the baby. After that, we have nothing but boys. And I never understood the plight of having to be a mother raising black sons. I'd never seen anything like it. You know, I ended up having to send my boys all away as a parent. When the last one, because I couldn't take it. I said, you all getting out of Chicago, you going away to college, I don't care where you go, don't come back here, you know, because I'm about to lose my mind. So they went away and they did go to school, thank God for that. But we got into this fight to save the lives of our children. And the children I taught at Williams and the children I taught at South Chicago and everywhere we went, I want you to think about this second half of what CAUSE does. We do research on what works and what does not work for inner city children. And we took our lessons from Dr. Barbara Sizemore. That when I went into the school, Dr. Barbara Sizemore's model, I say, I gotta use this. I don't care what they bring in here. I know this works for our children. And when I started doing research with the children, I found out one thing. I would teach a lesson, and then I would teach that lesson, and then I would go back, and I would teach it again, and I would give the standardized test. Children didn't know what I was talking about. They didn't have a clue. Well, I just taught you this lesson. What's going on? Let's do it again. Children don't have a clue when I give them a standardized test. Now, they understand the lesson when I'm talking to them one-on-one, but I realize they don't understand the language. They don't understand the language on a standardized test. I began to interpret and say, hey, this is what this means. You know, this is how we would say this. All of a sudden, I start getting the highest gain in reading, the highest gain in math in my building, and my scores started increasing and increasing. My principal told me, she said, when I was working at Barnard, when you walk in the building, the scores start going up. So when they closed Williams, I'd already perfected my strategy, and I went to work for South Chicago, and that is where the principal became the first internal school turnaround. We turned that school around ourselves. We did not need any help to turn it around because we understood what our children needed. They needed literacy. they needed to learn and interpret another language. And as we began to show them that, the scores began to rise. And the children began to improve and have success. So with that end, we decided that that was one of our solutions at cause. And we developed a petition out for, you can sign on change.org, for American children who are descendants of America. That we're speaking and we want the same rights and same supports. And this isn't a competition with the immigrant children. Because when they come here, and I applaud their community, because they made sure that when their children landed on these shores, they had the proper protection under the law to make sure that those children were protected. You weren't going to fail them. You weren't going to mistreat them. You weren't going to do anything to them. Because legally, they had gone to Springfield using our civil rights legislation and passed the ESL Act so that their children could be protected. And when I went to teach in Mississippi, I walked in there, and one thing the principal said that stuck out in my mind, I was doing grades, and she said to them, she said, make sure that you give all of the immigrant children an A or a B. I said, well, some of them don't speak English. She said, the law says you have to do it. You cannot give them any, we prefer an A or a B. And she looked at me and she said, you can fail him, he's black. And it stuck in my heart, in my mind, because Jaquan's not protected. Jaquan doesn't have the right that an immigrant child has. Jaquan can fail 3 times. And he can be in a classroom where he fails 3 times, and he's 16 when he leaves out of elementary school. Now that is a future high school dropout right there. Nobody is going to high school when they're 16 and have to come out when they're 21. These are the laws that protect. And like I say, I'm proud of what the immigrants have done. I'm proud of and I ask you to do the same thing. Yes, I ask you to protect our children. I ask you to go and sign for literacy for African American children. We need the same supports everybody else has. We need our children to not have to fail because they don't understand the language on the test. We need the same things. When they go into a classroom, we need that additional layer for Jaquan, so he's not 16, that he hasn't failed 3 times and given up on education and given up on life. So that is what CAUSE is about. We advocate for our children, but our goal, our mission, which we refuse to ever let anyone inside a classroom out, separate us from our mission, which is to educate our children. We're going to do it outside. We're going to make a difference. We're going to do it inside. We're going to do it. You put us out. We're going to make up a school. We're going to write grants. I just wrote a grant for CVS High School. Got right back in there. Teaching our children. So as I wrap it up, I just want you to remember those 2 things. That we have our teachers out here. They deserve the support of Chicago Teachers Union. They're not getting it. We have our teachers, and the union has politicized. I call them no longer a union, but the Chicago Teachers Political Party. That's what it is. When you spend 20% of your income on your teachers and 80% on something else, teachers are not your first, and it's not your first duty or your responsibility. So remembering our children, and I say to all of you, just to keep focused, cost teachers. We're Teach for the Future Incorporated. We do grants. We doing everything we can to service. My whole family's involved. My sister is Project Promise. She's on 103rd. She services 1,000 children along with my daughter over on the south west side of the city. And we are Cost Teachers, and wherever you see us, support us and just help us to get this message out. But the main message is remember our children, and thank you very much. I know I went off script a little bit, but thank you so much for your time. Remember to sign our petitions on change.org, literacy for African American students, and also for the mass termination of African American students, teachers nationwide. Thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Matanda. She's able to, if you wouldn't mind answering some questions.
Sure.
Just a couple of minutes of questions, anyone? I mean,
It's just the last statement, what we made about the teachers' union, it was a little troubling for me.
Okay.
Because one function of the union first is to make the workers work. It's the job of the employer to pay the union. Now, I'm not a teachers' union representative.
Right.
But I was a rep for many years, 5 years old.
Now say that again. I want to understand what you're asking.
Here's go. I just thought it was a little concerning when you know, about the money that you said the union spent. Sometimes the union has to fight a bigger organization to get the big picture. And they work hard, too.
I did work for the union.
Yeah, and sometimes
I
it can,
do know.
yes, and I don't want us to say, because a lot of the union members were teachers and so forth, so they know what it is to be on the front line. And I just don't want us to get into fighting the people that work hard to make sure everything is fair for everybody.
Well, that's what
Because
we
we've
want
lost a
unions to
lot
do,
of that
isn't it?
so much.
Yes, and I agree.
We've
and
lost
I'll
so
get-
much in people that advocate for us.
Yeah.
We've got factories closing.
Now, what union are you
I-
referring to?
No, I was talking when you were talking about the teachers' union.
Yeah, that's the union I'm
Yeah,
referring
I
to.
just, I appreciated everything you said, but I just said sometimes the things that the union have to do, we may not like.
Well,
But it
I'm
has
going to
to
say
be done.
this. Can I answer you?
Sure.
Because we had a union that did all those things you said up until 2010, when the mission of the union turned from service to its members to political and community organizing. We want our union to be like it was because we deserve to be protected by our union and the dues we pay. We deserve that. So we're not saying we're anti-union. We just want the union to do right by its members. Yes, go ahead.
You told my story,
Okay.
but none of it, just being in this space, in Quinn Chapel, for everything that the president of the NAACP said, and for what you're doing, it is a matter of us looking at what happens in time. See, the thing is, money try to buy time.
Right.
But it can't buy history. And so, I entered Chicago Public School in the 90s, and that was considered the era of organized anarchy. I was right in the middle of it, but I did what most teachers did. I shut that classroom door, and I handled my business. I was also, though, I couldn't take it because the anarchy got greater and greater and greater, and I didn't know. And no, the union did not help me. They were taking $52 out of my check every 2 weeks, but then they still didn't want to, you call them up and ask for help, and they tell you to go do it. Well, I'm scared of the principal, kind of, because she's got power. She's got the parents. She's got all the political power. So, but that's over time, because I'm talking about 90s. And the only reason I had the mindset I had is because of my age. I was a grandmother when I went in there. So I was going to shut that door and do with Barbara Sizemore and Jackie Vaughn and Marva Collins and and Viola Thomas did for me. Those women taught me.
All right.
You know, so I didn't change my game only because of my age. But thank you so much because you gave me so much more of the history of what happened before me. You know, because I didn't pay it no attention, and I'm gonna be honest with you. I didn't want to have nothing to do with politics. I didn't want to have nothing to do. I did do what I had to do because you have to vote. I was raised on that. But
And please remember that you have to vote.
If you don't vote, you're not a citizen anyway. And I think that's you raised that point that if we're not in the game, we're not in the game. I just want to ask you though, you were asking for standard English. They wouldn't do it.
Who is that they?
Well, I mean, okay, so the Hispanic community or the ESL, that's second language, right?
Well, what has to be done in order? The bill has already been done. All we ask our legislators to do is add an line item that would include our children, because then they would get all those resources, and they would include it because African American Vernacular English has been declared a language. So we could go in and say that these children are speaking another language. They speak a dialect of standard English, and that would make sure that they got the same resources. That's all we're asking.
So you're saying that's the Ebonics movement? That's the Ebonics movement? Because that was a movement that told our kids.
It was Ebonics.
Okay.
And we call it African American Vernacular English today. But
Hi. Thank you so much, Mrs. Tondrick. If you could give her another hand, please. If you have any other questions, you can see her afterwards, but we have candidates in the back who are waiting for the next session. And we don't want to hold them up because they have to get to other forums. So thank you. Thank you so much. We will take a 2 to 3 minute break while we let the candidates know that we are ready for them. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying for all of the portions of the forum. Thank you. Oh, you were back there
I was
already?
back there already.
Oh, okay, great. Then you can,
Get up there?
yeah.
All right. Hey, how you doing?
Girl, yeah, worry about your purse.
I know. You want me
Hi, Aaron. You know my name. That's why I'm gonna get you now. Everybody, you know. Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Let me smack him around a little bit. Would it be right in my what here?
Well, speaking in existence. Yeah, well, it's gonna happen. So, good afternoon. If we can have everybody take their seats, we're going to get started. Is the mic on? Can y'all hear me? So I'm going to say this again. Good afternoon. If everybody could go ahead and take their seats. My name is Tyra Owens, and I am a steward board member of this really awesome, dope, wonderful space that y'all are in. This is Quinn Chapel, African Methodist Episcopal Church. We are the oldest Black congregation in the city of Chicago. Yes, please. And as such, being that we have been incorporated just 7 years after the city of Chicago, please understand that you're standing on holy space, okay? So as I welcome you all into my second home, I grew up here. Our pastor, Reverend Troy, grew up here. A lot of the people who go here actually grew up in this church. So as I welcome you into my second home, I just want to say, hey, act like you at home, okay? I would also like to just share, now we had a great presentation from soon-to-be Judge Pam Sangden earlier about why we should vote. We also had a really interesting conversation led by Ms. Shaitanda, and it'll blow your mind because I feel like Chicago is really smaller than we give it credit for, right? We're the second city, but a lot of times we see people and we come across people who we haven't seen in a very long time. So as Ms. Shaitanda shared, her story about being a teacher at Williams, I, had to think about the fact that I actually graduated from Williams the same year that it was closed, right? So after my valedictorian speech, we actually sang "It's So Hard to Say Goodbye." So I'm not going to tell y'all who to vote for, but I will say after that, it is very important that we do vote for our mayoral candidate. And hopefully we see why there is a better choice, because as a product of a very divested school system, I'm proud to be able to stand before you all today, okay? For the second part of this event, I again have the great honor to introduce you all to some runoff candidates for the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 21st wards. Now, I can't tell you all how momentous. Momentous. It's been a long morning, y'all. I can't tell y'all how much momentum is riding on these elections. And it is very thoughtful that all of these candidates standing behind me would actually come and spend some time with us this afternoon, right? Give them a round of applause, please. With us this afternoon, we have from the 4th Ward runoff race, Alderman hopeful Prentice Butler. We have both 5th Ward candidates, Desmond Yancey and Ms. Martina Horn. We have 6th Ward candidates, Richard Wooten and William Hall. And then last, but of course not least, we have aldermanic candidate Ronnie Mosley from the 21st Ward. Now we have some really awesome questions that have been prepared from both sides of the House, Quinn Chapel and NAACP, again, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. And to ask those questions of our candidates, we have two Southside branch members, Dahlia Gorey with us today, as well as attorney Chelsea Robinson, who also serves as the first vice president of the Southside branch and the chair of the Criminal Justice Committee. In regards to instructions, again, we can't have an event like this without giving these awesome people some instructions, right? We're gonna have 1 minute of opening, 1 minute of closing from each candidate, but then they also get 2 minutes to respond to each of the questions from Ms. Gorey and from Attorney Robinson. So without further ado, we welcome you all again into this space for an awesome conversation with these candidates, and we hope you enjoy.
Oh, come on. Y'all been to church before. Praise the Lord, everybody. I'm indeed somebody's pastor, so I got to ask it. Is anybody glad that God woke you up and started you on your way? Come on, this is the day the Lord has made. We are rejoicing and be glad in it. I want to welcome you to Quinn Chapel African Methodist Episcopal Church. My name is the Reverend Troy Venning. I go by Pastor Troy, but not the rapper from Atlanta. Praise the Lord. I want to welcome you into this space. As Tyra mentioned, I grew up in this church. A lot of us grew up in this church. A lot of people in this room will say and have stories about how I would be at Quinn Chapel. Quinn Chapel holds the distinction of being Chicago's first African-American congregation. We've been a congregation since 1844 as a prayer band, but in 1847 we became members of the African Methodist Episcopal Church. So this July, we will celebrate our 177th church anniversary. Now, we moved around the city from spot to spot. One of our first locations was in the alley of the Chicago Theater. That actual space was actually the last stop on the Underground Railroad. We lost that building to the Chicago Fire. We come here. One of us had to pass for real light skin. Okay, y'all, catch that tomorrow. And so in the 1890s, purchased this plot of land, and we've been in this building since 1891. This plot of property that you sit on is the longest continually held property by African Americans in the city of Chicago. So it's interesting that we gather here to talk about why it's important to vote. In 1893, at the Columbian Exposition at World's Fair, which was held in Hyde Park on the Midway, we know a gentleman by the name of Frederick Douglass. Anybody heard that name before? Frederick Douglass was at the Haitian Pavilion, and at that World's Fair, there was a lady by the name of Susan B. Anthony. Any ladies in the room? No, none of y'all. No women any women in the room? Come on, you got to help me so I can get out of the way. Any women in the room? All right, who runs the world? Girls, right? Beyonce. All right. Frederick Douglass speaks to Susan B. Anthony, who attempts to champion the women's right to vote, is not given space to talk about why that's important at the World's Fair. Frederick Douglass brings her to Quinn Chapel to be able to have that conversation. And so it's important that we have this conversation. It's important that we mobilize your cousin, your Pookie and them, anybody you're connected to vote, because we're not too far off from when our ancestors had to guess how much was in the jar to be able to vote. Not too far from having folks polling places move from spot to spot just so that they could vote. Now, in the first half, we invited both candidates. They weren't able to come for whatever reason, but I will tell you that one of the candidates sent somebody here to place signs all over the area. And so they found it important to put signs all over the area, but not important enough to be here. And so we're grateful that, I had to do some landscaping before y'all got here this morning. There's some landscaping. And I left one sign for each candidate outside. So we're grateful for these folks that they will come as they exercise their right to be of service. That's really what the job is to be a servant. And so ask the tough question. Hold them accountable. Because if they don't want to answer the tough question, if they aren't willing to be held accountable, then they don't deserve to wear the crown or to be of service, because they ain't going to serve you anyway. And so I'm grateful. I know some of these folks, and I'm grateful for their sacrifice of service, to put themselves out there. And I know the race has been long for each of you, and I know you're tired, but keep running. We're in church. Let's pray. God, we love you. We honor and adore you. We bless you. We magnify your holy name. We thank you for this space. We thank you for this opportunity to have this conversation. God, grant some of us the ability to have righteous indignation over the things that we should be angry about. Grant some of us, God, the ability to have and ask the right question of the right folks so we can get their answers, so we can figure out who it is we need to vote for. God, I'm asking that you bless this meeting. I'm asking that you bless each candidate. Now, the blessing isn't for all of them to serve in this particular race that they're running. But God, give them the courage, no matter what the outcome, to keep serving. God bless us now. It's in Jesus' name. Amen. Judge, I'm not sure who, am I turning it over to? All right, let's give it up for our two wonderful people who will be asking questions of our candidates. Come on, y'all put your hands together.
Before we get started, hello everyone. My name is Chelsea Robinson, and I will be one of the interviewers. Let me just give you some parameters in regards to, as you stated, as was stated earlier, we have 1 minute for your opening, and 2 minutes for each question, and 1 minute for your closing. We do have a timer. Our Judge Sandin, soon-to-be Judge Sandin, will be our timer. And she will be holding up a green card after 1 minute is passed, letting you know you have 1 minute left for your questions. When you have 30 seconds left, she would hold up a yellow card. And when it's time to stop, she will be holding up a red card. And in regards to your opening, at 30 seconds, she will hold up the yellow card, and when it's time to stop and your minute has passed, she will hold up the red card. Thank you so much.
All right, our first one will be Mr. Butler. First question, your introduction, I'm sorry.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Prentice Butler. I was born actually in the 4th Ward at Michael Reese Hospital, educated at Hales Franciscan High School here in the community. And because of the community, they poured into me and gave me the resources I needed to thrive and be successful, I was able to attend the University of Chicago. I was able to get my master's in public policy from that institution. And I've been in Brownsville since 2007, serving the community, being involved in youth serving organizations such as 100 Black Men in Chicago, a member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. Hey. I've been here on the ground working under 2 administrations. I've been accessible. I've been working for the community. I've been consistent. The other candidate, which is not here today, uses the excuse that he's at Springfield working for the people. He is not. He's afraid, and he's not being accountable to the community. Anybody that wants your vote and refuses to be accessible and refuses to share their ideas should not seek office in the city council. Thank you.
And Mr. Yancey, 1 minute.
Good afternoon, everyone. Praise the Lord. My name is Desmond Yancey. I'm a candidate for 5th Ward Alderman. My family has deep roots in the South Shore, and I was actually born in Chicago Lion Inn Hospital in the ward, so I am a longtime resident of the ward. I am running for a simple reason. I'm concerned about Black Chicago. We've got 15 new aldermen being elected, most of those in Black communities, and when we look at what has happened to our neighborhoods over the last 20 or 30 years, we've seen a sharp decline in our quality of life. I'm a longtime community organizer, having spent almost 20 years as an organizer fighting for programs to support our seniors and people with disabilities and our children. Co-founded the Grassroots Alliance for Police Accountability and the Empowering Communities for Public Safety Coalition to bring civilian oversight to the Chicago Police Department. This coalition passed an ordinance in July of 2021 that creates the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability, and also the district councils. And that work came about because we built a massive coalition from across the city. We're gonna need a coalition in the 5th Ward in order to win what we need for our transformation. So I look forward to sharing my ideas and thoughts with you, and thank you.
Ms. Hoyne, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. I guess we're all standing up. I'm Tina Hone. Don't let it fool you. I'm like the light-skinned brother that bought your church, okay? And what's significant about that is that when you're light and you understand the privileges that you have, you also understand your responsibility to use those privileges on behalf of your people. And so I have spent my life and my career fighting for civil rights and social justice. I'm a lawyer. I spent most of my career in Washington, D.C. I fought to close the digital divide, to improve public schools, to improve end health equities, to end sentencing disparities. Fought the Biden administration on that despicable crime bill. And so my background is different. I was not a community organizer in Chicago, but I fought for system-level change in Washington, D.C. That saved the lives of countless people. When I came home from Washington, D.C., I actually worked at YWCA as its chief equity officer, leading economic empowerment programs in the community. And my time is up, but yeah, I'm really delighted to be here at the oldest church, black church in the city. It means a lot to me. Thank you.
Mr. Hall, 1 minute.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is William, and I'm cold. We just got through knocking on doors, and it's good to be back home. A lot of breakfasts were here throughout my lifetime, and a lot of press conferences around our issues, and that's just who I am. I grew up as a rat in the church. Father drugged me to church, drugged me to meetings, drugged me to the back of his classroom as a teacher. And so 38 years living on the same block in the 6th Ward is my story. And I want to build on what we have, the history we have, the hard work and dedication of so many in the ward. And so I'm excited to hear some of the ideas and voices of those here, even my opponent, and listening to what you all have to say today. So my name is William Hall, and God bless you, and let's have a good conversation.
Mr. Wooten, you have 1 minute.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Richard Wooten. I'm a United States Army veteran serving in the Desert Storm War. I was blessed to come home from the war and be able to join the Chicago Police Department. Spent 23 years as a Chicago police officer, but I'm not your ordinary police officer. I'm a police officer that works with the community as a beat liaison officer. I increased the number of people that participate in the beats meetings at the 6th District. I increased the opportunities for us to actually solve crime in the 6th District from 17 to number 2 in the city. I'm a pastor. I am a businessman. I'm a family man. I'm someone who's been serving all my life, and God told me I'm not finished serving yet. I'm in this position right now because the people have called me, people have chose me, and I'm not going to let them down because I understand that the ward that we live in is one of the most prominent wards in the city of Chicago that has, for the past 12 years, has turned its back and went in the wrong direction. And I'm here today to move forward in making the 6th Ward a better ward. Thank you.
Mr. Mosley, 1 minute.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ronnie Mosley, and I'm running to be the next alderman of the 21st Ward. The 21st Ward is a ward that I was raised in. I grew up there, I was educated there, and it is the ward with the largest amount of black people with the highest turnout of black voters. That allows us to demand the resources that improve our quality of life. So when I talk about that we deserve a ward that is safe, that means that we have community policing. Both residents and business owners are calling for those beat officers to be back, but also that we address the root causes of gun violence and other criminal activity. That we have strong businesses where we can spend our own dollars in our own communities as opposed to going outside of that. And then also resources and opportunities for everyone, particularly our seniors and youth. When we talk about service, I just want to highlight actually Ms. Gorey, who offered herself up for service in the same race and is still serving today. That's the type of folks that live in the 21st Ward, and I believe that makes us the greatest ward in the city.
We are going to move forward with that questions portion of our forum. Before we do, I would like to inform all of our candidates of the NAACP's Game Changer topics and the topics in which our question will derive. We have health, economic development, housing, criminal justice, environmental justice, education, and voting rights. Keep that in mind as you answer your question. Now we will have our first question. And I'm gonna also ask that everyone stay seated as you answer the question and just pass the microphone. Thank you.
Okay, starting off with Mr. Butler. What's the first issue in your ward that needs to be addressed and why, and what's your plan?
The first issue that needs to be addressed in our ward and many wards across the city is public safety. We're on the precipice right now. I'm dealing with constituents over the years that are saying, I've spent all this money on a house in the community, and I don't feel safe. I don't feel like I have a school of first choice in my neighborhood. So why should I pay the taxes and stay here in the city of Chicago if I don't feel safe and I can't educate my family? So the first thing I have to tackle as a newly elected alderman is public safety in the community.
Just clarification, 1 minute? All right. Again, public safety, 2 minutes. Okay. Did you go? All right. Public safety is one of the most important issues in the city, and particularly the Fifth Ward. We have experienced economic downturn over the last, as I mentioned, 20 years, and have seen, for example, the 71st Street corridor go down. But we've also got Hyde Park in our ward, and people in Hyde Park don't feel safe. And so it's important to acknowledge that, black communities tend to be the communities with the most amount of crime and the most amount of police. So clearly something's not working. So my work in creating the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability was specifically designed to reimagine our public safety system so that we can attack the root causes of crimes, including mental health resources, making sure that folks have jobs, making sure our young people feel like loved and protected and educated and supported and prepared for the future. So it's going to be important that as we look at our public safety concerns, it is not just making sure that we weed bad apples out of our police department, but that we have a police department that provides service in an equitable way, that makes sure that all of its citizens feel safe, and particularly when we talk about black residents in the city of Chicago, that we feel safe from everyone, not just the police, but also from those who wish to harm us. Thank you.
Ms. Moy, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. First, I want to acknowledge Reverend Wooten and thank you for your service in the military and thank you for your service on CPD. It is hard to be a police officer in this city because there are bad apples that make everybody look like they're not fair and honorable police officers, and there are some fair and honorable police officers. And I think it's important to acknowledge that. But we're not going to police our way to public safety, and most police officers will tell you that. And so while we need to work on South Shore, which is part of the Fifth Ward, our ward is very complex and very diverse. South Shore has some of the longest police response times in the city, like an hour. Whereas when you look at Lincoln Square, it has a 3-minute response time. That can't be right. And so we have to figure that out. We have to figure out how to make sure our police officers are adequately trained. There has to be transparency, all of the things that lead to a really good, fair, equitable, and just police force. But we also have to deal with the root causes of violence. Our young people don't have jobs. Our young people don't have hope. Our young people are not graduating, especially young black males. They're dropping out of school. They're not graduating on time. They're not graduating. They're falling through the cracks in a huge way. And so the African-American male achievement gap has to be dealt with because we're losing our boys in schools to the streets, and then it's creating a cycle of crime and poverty. We need to address trauma. I support the movement to have treatment, not trauma, but we also have to recognize that a lot of the mental health specialists are afraid to go to some of the calls without the police department. There are 4 neighborhoods, including Chatham, that's in the pilot program. That pilot needs to be expanded. We need to make sure that there are programs for the kids, not just the goody two-shoe kids like I was, but the kids who are already disengaged. We have to give them safe places to be. And it doesn't have to be structured programming. They just want to be able to hang out, be kids, and be safe. When the young man was killed at Millennium Park, I went out to Roseland where I grew up, and I heard that from the kids. They want safe places to be.
Mr. Hall, 2 minutes.
Could you repeat the question one more time?
Okay. What's the first issue in your ward that needs to be addressed and why, and what's your plan?
So the first issue is public safety. And I'm going to tell you my experience in the last 24 hours where a gentleman with a machine gun is shooting across the street to a gentleman with a 9mm with extended clip. The shootout started at my house, goes to the middle of the block, and then it ends at a school right down the street, 1 block over, where a principal where I was at hollers lockdown. They're shooting on the play lot. The thing that offended me and was an insult is that I get a call, and then it's all of a sudden we're going to put cops around your block. But my neighbors have called around similar issues. 3 weeks ago, gentleman was shot, killed. I watched them zip up the body bag. Again, we know where the crime is. So the first thing that I'm gonna propose is police to be strategically placed in hot spots in the ward. The second thing we're going to do is work on a brighter ward. State funding is essential to viability in the ward. LG Sims has funded over 100 lights through a capital line in the budget. Our ward is dark. When I look outside after 7 o'clock, there is literally nothing you can see for the first 6 houses on my block. So secondly, we're gonna have brighter lights that are funded by the state in addition to the city, because the downtown wards are brighter. The third thing we're gonna do is have police stationed so that the response time can be cut in half. I'm tired of North Side strategy where police are stationed, call time is shorter, and they know where the hot spots are, but when we need our fair share in the 6th ward, it is we don't have enough cops. They have to go there, they have to go there. So black lives in the 6th ward don't matter. So we're gonna change the strategy to have police stationed the same way they are downtown, so that when people call and when people see police, it deters violence. Last but not least, we have violence intervention and prevention workers. Brother McKenzie is here, and we need to have mental specialists working and walking with brothers like him so that they can deter the crime with mental health experts that see triggers, that see people that need conversation and not cuffs. We don't need military. We spent over $1 billion in police misconduct for legal searches over aggressive cops in the last 10 years. Thank you.
Mr. Wooten, 2 minutes.
Public safety is definitely the #1 issue in our ward, as well as the rest of the city. And we need to deal with that because we have seniors who are afraid to come out of their homes. We have kids who can't go to the park and enjoy themselves. I've dealt with this situation when I was in the CAP's office back in 2006. Again, like I said, we was number 17 in the city out of 25 districts with the lowest return on solving crime, with the lowest participation of community members in the CAPS program. And in 5 years, I was able to actually bring that number from number 17 to being number 2 in the city in solving crime and getting people engaged. And the only way we're gonna actually make this here thing work in our ward is that we give the power back in the hands of the people. No, we can't police ourselves out of this situation, but the police do have a responsibility to be a partner in this situation. Right. The police department must do what they're supposed to do. We need to fight for beat integrity. That means that every beat have an officer that's assigned to that area, so therefore the response time is short. Therefore, that area is getting the proper policing that they deserve. I was a part of the Chicago Police Accountability Task Force under Rahm Emanuel. And in that task force, we wrote a report on how the police department need to change the policies and the procedures in order to make the policing in our communities much more effective. In that, working in that, within that task force, we wind up actually getting the consent decree that the police department is working under right now to ensure that they police properly in our ward. So the things that we're talking about that the police is not doing, we need to hold the police departments accountable. I've been meeting right now with the commander of the 3rd District, and I got a meeting scheduled with the commander of the 6th District to ensure that we get the proper policing in our ward. Foot patrol is being activated back in position, and the bike patrols are doing what they're supposed to do. And in addition to that, we want to make sure that the violent prevention and the public safety monies that Mayor Lori Lightfoot has put in place for their $100 million are going to the block clubs to help the block clubs ensure that public safety is met in their communities. Thank you.
Mr. Mosley, 2 minutes.
Thank you. I think first it starts with my office. It's having an office that's responsive to folks who are calling. When my neighbors are calling and saying we are seeing things, if they don't see action from us, they're gonna stop calling. And that creates the windshield effect. You know how you get a crack in your windshield, you keep driving that week and the next week, it gets bigger and bigger. So it starts first with the alderman's office. And April 5th, the day after the election, I'm going to be calling the commanders because we have 3 different districts in the 21st Ward. My job is to expedite city services and also reduce crime. I need that partnership with our commanders who can be responsive to the calls that are coming from our folks. Also, I believe police are overburdened. Majority of the calls deal with mental health. It's not their profession. We got to get police back to doing the work of policing. That's why businesses and residents alike are calling for beat officers to be back, to know our names, to say, hey, Johnny, I know that you were supposed to be at school, or I know where you live and I'm going to take you back to your home. And then also we got to keep investing in what works. We know violence prevention works. Those organizations have to continuously be funded from the city and from other levels of government, and then putting folks to work. is what we need to do. The 21st Ward has the opportunity to do a lot of development. I'm going to make sure that it's our folks that are doing that work, from the construction to the operations and to the maintenance. That's how we have a thriving 21st Ward.
Excuse me just a moment. Can I reclaim 30 minutes or 30 seconds of my time? I thought it was only 1 minute in the beginning. I just want to add this addendum to the public safety concern. Listen, I've been working already on innovative solutions to public safety in the 4th Ward, one with violence interrupters. We took $100,000 from the City of Chicago Violence Prevention Funds to make sure we have violence interrupters in the community to mitigate concerns before they jump off. Also, we hired a private security force to be in the community. Not armed, they're not armed, but they're extra eyes and ears on the street. So funding from the state and funding from the city can produce innovative solutions to protect our community. I do want to acknowledge Tracy Bay, who is the head of one of the violence interrupter groups that we have in the community, ESCOMs for Community and Social Change. They have been a great ally to make sure our streets are safe in the 4th Ward. So we have to be innovative, we have to be smart, we have to be nuanced with our approach. We do have to focus on youth programming. I just want to make sure I added it in to make sure we had a holistic response about public safety in the 4th Ward.
Thank you. Retail development along our commercial corridors is vital to creating economically viable and sustainable business districts and generating jobs in the Black community. What is your plan to build up your business districts, and is your plan feasible? Mr. Butler, 2 minutes.
I'm glad you asked that question. In the last 10 years, 12 years working in the 4th Ward, that's exactly what I've been working on. Listen, Hyde Park is thriving. We worked on Harper Court. We're working on Harper Court Phase 2. You have a walkable retail district. Now, that's fine for Hyde Park. We've also been working on Brownsville itself, Cottage Grove. Now you have Brownsville Winery. I've been at the table since the beginning about planning for that building, making sure we had exceeded our minority contracts for that, making sure most of the businesses are Black-owned in that space. And we have Northwestern Memorial coming to that corridor as well. And we have a community-led process for us to tell this developer what we want to see. It's not going to be a top-down approach. And I'm happy to say at 4400 Grove, where Brownsville Winery is located, 99% of the businesses at that location are Black-owned. Black-owned. We need to help these businesses scale up so we can support people that live in that community. And anytime there's taxpayer dollars being used for these developments, we need to make sure that Black folks have a fair shot of getting contracts and being able to work on these projects. We did that with 4400 Grove. We exceeded it. We got 60% MBE participation on that project. The city's mandate, which we consider the floor, is 26 and 6. 26% MBE, 6% for women-owned businesses. We've done that at that business and more. And Michael Reese, which is coming up, we're going to have a groundbreaking for that this week. We will have over 40% goal for the minority businesses in that project. We have affordable housing on site. We have a senior home in the first phase of development. This is not theoretical for me. This is what I've been working on as chief of staff for the last 12 years. I've been at the table. I have proven results. Not theoretical. I've been doing work, and we will continue that going forward. And most of all, I want to make sure with small businesses, we need to start giving them grants up front, not after they spend the money. We need more small business grants up front so our small businesses can get started. Thank you.
Mr. Yancey?
I'm a firm believer in Black businesses. My first job was for a Black man who owned a store on 55th and Cornell. And it was the experience that I got working for a Black man, the leadership experience, the grace that I was afforded as a 17 and 18-year-old who wasn't quite prepared for the workforce is going to be vital to making sure that our young people who are underprepared for the workforce right now see that same development. I'm a firm believer in community-based development. When I was a senior director at Inner City Muslim Action Network, we partnered with other community organizations like RAGE and Teamwork Inglewood to revitalize the 63rd and Racine corridor. Our work there has involved creating a grocery store that offers fresh food and a food pantry for those who can't afford to purchase food on their own. we have purchased a closed public school, and it's called the Regenerator Project, where it's going to be revitalized by our formerly incarcerated people who go through our trades program to create another trades program in Inglewood that provides mental health resources and resources for formerly incarcerated people and revitalizing a blighted corridor. We've also worked as a community to reopen the Green Line stop at 63rd and Racine because it's important that the community play a role in its development. And it's key to use that same model across the expressway and bringing it to the Fifth Ward because we've got a vital corridor, particularly around 71st Street from Yates to Stony Island, that is ripe for development. And that development needs to be centered in the community. It needs to, we need to make sure that landlords who own those properties are being held to account and either sell it or have it removed from them through eminent domain so that we can move forward with the development that is necessary in South Shore. And then I'll add to that Greater Grant Crossing, which has kind of been the unfortunate stepchild of the Fifth Ward. There's a great corridor along South Chicago that is in deep need of development. The Greater Grant Crossing has been asking for a grocery store for over 20 years. It's important as alderman that I do work to bring those resources to the community. Thank you.
Ms. Horn?
So as Chief Equity Officer at YWCA Chicago, Chief Equity actually was a double entendre, right? It was equity in the sense of justice, but the main part of my job was building community equity, helping people buy homes, get homes, and helping people own their businesses and thrive in those businesses, and not just have these businesses as employment replacers, because 90% of black-owned businesses are sole proprietorships. We needed to help people understand that they needed to take businesses and sort of build empires, right? And one of the empires, it's very interesting, you know, the lights that you were talking about, the biggest supplier of lights in the city is actually a black-owned business, and he operates on the west side, and it actually gives jobs to returning citizens. And so that's the type of story that black-owned businesses can be. We don't have to just be, you know, the little store in the basement that's only hiring one people. We can build empires and employ a lot of people. When I think about some of the things that are needed in the Fifth Ward, it's a complex ward again. There are lessons we can learn from Hyde Park, lessons we can own from black-owned businesses in Hyde Park. Why did the two Eric Williams, I now know why, one went your way, but like, why aren't we building these same types of destinations on 71st Street? South Shore is beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful neighborhoods in this city. It ought to be a destination for everyone, but it's not happening. The other thing is just more of a warning. You know, we talk about minority participation, and some of you know about Roe v. Wade being reversed. Affirmative action is about to be reversed. We need to come up with plans now for how we're going to continue to support our community. And one of the things I proposed when I was in the mayor's office is that we change the way that the contracting is offered so that you are prioritizing people and businesses that live in some of the poorest, highest unemployment, lowest income areas of the city. You won't be surprised to know where those neighborhoods are. So we have to also be able to look across the horizon. And thank you.
Mr. Hall?
Yes, could you repeat the question again, please? Thank you.
Retail development along our commercial corridors is vital to creating economically viable and sustainable business districts and generating jobs in the black community. What is your plan to build up your business districts, and is your plan feasible?
Yeah, the first thing I'm gonna do is listen. And so we're gonna develop a business advisory council in our office that will consist of business owners. And in addition to that, secondly, I will bring the experts and bring the resources to small business owners in the ward via my office. For example, in our ward right now, we have Providence Bank, and on the border we have Self-Help, formerly known as Seaway Bank. These are places where we already have relationships, meaning that I can pick up the phone and call the president and or senior vice president because small businesses need access to capital. Bank of America, Chase, and the big dogs make it harder for small businesses to get the loans that they need or the refinancing that they need. So secondly, the banks will do right by black businesses in the ward. The third thing that we're going to do is look at a model in which business owners have access to resources. Right now, next door, you all have the University of Chicago, the Booth School School is a great business school. Why can't the Booth School come right next door to the 6th Ward, in which we develop a cohort model, which myself and Pastor Troy are a part of, in which business owners have an opportunity to have access, have questions, listen to experts, and grow their businesses. Most black businesses open up with a wing and a prayer and faith. They need coaching. They need to know how to scale up. So good coaching with a university partner can help that. Fourthly, what we're going to do with our businesses is also make sure that they're held accountable. I live in the ward. I shop in the ward. Leo's Florals is one of my favorite florist spots in the city of Chicago. I love Brown Sugar. I love Limbs. So do most of you. But we need to hold our businesses accountable. We do not need dark parking lots like the one on 87th Street, in which people on the bus stop are in danger because it's not bright, and we don't need nasty businesses. So if your business is nasty, you don't service people well, we will not allow that in the 6th Ward. We will have 6th Ward business standards. Before we call in and before we put the clamps down, they will have a relationship with me because I will frequent the ward and shop with and hold them accountable to make sure that excellence is a part of their customer service experience for every consumer in the ward. Thank you.
Mr. Wooten.
The 6th Ward is in a very unique state right now. To the south of us, we have the historical Pullman District. To the north of us, we have the Obama Library coming. But even to the east of us, we have a movie theater that's coming right there, just right across from us. But the problem that we have is that for the past 12 years, the 6th Ward have not been actually positioning black businesses to take advantage of these situations. For the past 12 years, we have promoted more liquor establishments in our ward than we've actually found grocery stores. We need to start focusing on the right things. When I'm in office, we want to focus on having a Chamber of Commerce or improving the Chamber of Commerce that actually have an impact and affects the entire ward and not just part of the ward. We want to make sure that we actually are restoring black businesses in our community. We know that 75th Street from the Dan Ryan to King Drive or to Cottage Grove is Black Wall Street. Black Wall Street have not been Black Wall Street in a long time. And we need to start putting black businesses back on Black Wall Street so we can actually begin to actually start re-energizing who our community is and what we are able to do. We need to focus on bringing grocery stores, 38 liquor establishments in our ward, and not one grocery store. That's wrong. Not one mental health facility. That's wrong. We need to be focusing in on how to better our community. And when we bring black-owned businesses back into our community, when we bring grocery stores into our community, when we bring the necessities in our community that the people need, we will have a better economic state in our community. So those are the things that we're focusing on. Yes, we also will have a business liaison person working in my office that's connected with the businesses to ensure that the businesses are good partners. We want people that are going to be good partners in our ward. Because if you're not going to be good for our ward, you can't be in our ward. And that's the stand I'm going to be taking. So at this particular stage right now, we're working hard to make our ward a better ward. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mosley.
Investment is finally coming to the far south side of Chicago. It's something that we welcome. It's been not invested in for decades, and the only way to reverse that is to actually invest. We have to control it, which means that we have to plan it, and we have to be ready for the opportunities that will be there. We get there starting by knowing that 103rd and Halsted will be our Black Wall Street. It is the heart of this new 21st Ward. We go from 83rd to 123rd. I'm excited to start working with businesses that have such a strong legacy, and let's be honest, we've had great businesses in the past and their children went away to college and other things and said, that's not the route for me. And that's okay, but what was the succession plan? We have Gatlin's Funeral Home on 101st in Halsted that is there, that wants to share that knowledge and experience. They've acquired a building that we're going to build out a business hub. It's going to be a place where you can come and have your meetings and so forth, but also an incubator such as Boxville, where young entrepreneurs can start, become strong, and then move out into the vacant properties that are throughout Halsted. We're going to have a planning committee so that we know these opportunities, what should go there. And we're going to make sure that we have the workforce development by partnering with churches and nonprofits, institutions that are already in our community to make sure that our folks are ready to do the work of the Red Line Extension, of the Roseland Medical District, and more and more. That, again, is how we envision being the strong ward that we can be. And then finally, products and services aren't the issue when it comes to our entrepreneurs. It's often the paperwork, the logistics, the taxing, the accounting. My office is going to be a service place for that, where we will walk business owners through making sure that they get their LLC, their EINs, their gratis certifications, and things so that they can thrive.
Okay, we're going to start off with Mr. Mosley. 2 minutes. Many schools in the Black wards are designated as failing schools. Do you have a plan to improve the standing of Black schools that are failing? And if so, please describe your plan.
Yes. I serve on a local school council. I've done so as a student. In fact, I was a student board member for the Board of Education. I serve on that local school council to bridge the gap, to bring more resources to those schools. In order for our schools to be successful, they need to be fully funded, fully staffed, and well-resourced. What changed a few years ago was the funding mechanism. Funding follows the student. It no longer is just based off what the attendance center needs. It's based off of how many students you have. We have to have that partnership, particularly with our community folks, such as like serving on Simeon, local school council. I partner with Greater Auburn Gresham Community Development Corporation to fund over $100,000 for after-school programming. So that's all the blue and gold folks who didn't play a sport could do things like gaming, could do things like drama, explore other creativities. That also comes down to making sure that we have the materials that teachers can teach with, the access to opportunities that we want our youth to know that is there for them so that they can envision and see their future. And then finally, I will say that our community has to be a part of this as well. There are still folks that live near our anchor institutions, those schools like Julian and Finger, that are looking for more opportunities. How can our schools play a role in that?
Mr. Wooten, you have 2 minutes.
Education is key, and it's what's going to actually help develop our young people to become the future that we're desiring for them to be. One of the things that I am so happy to see, and I want to make sure that we engage the people in, is the elected school board. We have to make sure that the people in our community are part of the elected school board, so they can actually have hands into what the school system is looking like in their particular areas. I was talking with the principal of one of the schools in our ward over at Dixon. Dixon has always been known for its high grades. But the principal tells me, Mr. Monday, Dr. Monday, he tells me, he says, you know, although we're trying hard to maintain, we still are in need. We're not being efficiently supplied just like the other schools are. So we want to make sure that every school, especially the schools in our ward, are receiving the same proper funding, an increase in funding, so that our kids can have the same computers on their desks that the other schools are having on the north side. So that our kids can able to actually look at and do some research on Black history, get the proper education that they desire and that they need. We want to make sure that we are in position to where the community is also supporting our schools. Being the president of the Greater Chatham Alliance, there are 4 schools in our ward that we focus on, that we provide resources to. We do coats, hats, school bags, anything that is needed. Our kids and our educational system are in need of greater things. So one, we have to make sure that our members are involved in the local school boards, are being elected on the Chicago Public School Boards. We want to make sure that we are being participants in the educational system of our children. So there's a lot of things that we have to do. So we have to keep fighting until we get the proper funding in place for our schools. Thank you.
Mr. Hall, 2 minutes.
Could you repeat the question?
Many schools in the Black wards are designated as failing schools. Do you have a plan to improve the standing of Black schools that are failing? If so, please describe and explain.
The first thing I'm gonna do is listen. My sister right here in the 4th row, she sat in a room with myself in which she convened every principal in the ward. It is imperative that we have an education advisory committee. Again, that's the reason why we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. I need to hear what the principals are in need of. As a son of an educator, every single day when I used to come home and watch my father, he was drained, dilapidated. Teachers and administrators are tired. They spend more time with your kids than you do. So the advisory council will advise me on the resources needed, will advise me on strategies that are needed. Secondly, I'm gonna show up. As a son of an educator, it is nothing more powerful than showing up. Again, yesterday, before they started having the Wild Wild West, I was at a school providing what a principal called me and said that they needed. We've adopted for the last 7 years, strategically adopted schools that are right down the street from where I live and my church. And so what's essential in adopting a school is not just show up with handouts. You have to work with the principal. You have to work with the teacher. We specifically were asked to give away extra reading and coloring books because kids at the first grade level needed those books in order to go home with to add on to their educational experience. The third thing that we're going to do with education is work with our state partners. In our ward, we have Senator L.G. Sims, State Representative Nick Smith. McDade Classical School has a whole wing attached to the school that was paid for by the state. We can argue fifth ward politics all day long. We already know that the tax formula is messed up because our homes are dilapidated, as well as they don't have the same tax base as the north side. Give us our fair share of state money, our fair share of federal money, our fair share of county money. Then last but not least, we will bring the philanthropists to the community. If Bezos' wife can write $1 million check to the Urban League, imagine what we can do if the Chicago Community Trust and other generous people like you give. I will also, fifthly, ask all of our faith leaders adopt a grade level, similar to what Father Clemens used to do. One church, one child, one church, one school. Thank you.
Ms. Owen, you have 2 minutes.
Well, that's a hard act to follow. No. But I shall persevere. So one of the things that I have talked about a lot on this campaign and will continue to talk about is how our economic disenfranchisement as a community is actually the root cause of all the ills in our community. And I don't say economic empowerment because that means we didn't do something, when in fact economic disenfranchisement was a very intentional removal of our right to own businesses, our access to capital. You know, the only community that has been bombed in the U.S. territory was Tulsa and the black community. So we need to, none of this is separate from economic enfranchisement. And the reason some of these schools on the north side have so many resources is because they have boosters. And there are more businesses and people with more disposable income who can be boosters for these schools. And so we need to take a look at how that booster system can be perhaps done in a different way so that, because equal is not just. I don't want equal share for our schools. I want extra share for our schools, right? I am a former educator. I taught 8th grade, and I'm a former school board member. I know a lot about education. My entry into public service was because I was a lawyer at a private law firm, and the Rodney King verdict happened, and I said, no, I'm gonna have to go back and pull up this next generation of kids. So I became a teacher. There's some real practical things. Time in school. Time in school is the most important thing you can do for a child. With that time we lost during the pandemic, never going to recover, and black kids are going to be suffering the most. We need to check on absenteeism. When kids are absent from school, find them, right? Summer intercession needs to be shorter. Parents need to be taught how to parent. It's not hard. Parents don't have to even help you with the homework. Just ask the question, what happened in school? When your kids know that you're paying attention, they pay attention in school. Oh, there's so much more. We got to get trades back in the schools. And at 5th grade, we got to start talking to kids about what trades are, because we took the trades out of the schools and we made school irrelevant to black boys. And it's practically genocide against our black boys if we don't do something to save them. So, thank you.
Yancey, 2 minutes.
I mean, the beautiful thing about this conversation that we've been having since September is that there are just no shortage of great ideas that are coming out. I believe in talking to principals. Just backing up a little bit, I spent about 25 years ago, I spent 2 years as an assistant kindergarten teacher. And what was enlightening about that, it was at Ariel Community Academy, and I saw how corporate partnerships enriched our students. I also saw how the commitment of the University of Chicago and the Dreamer program enriched our students. And so it's important, particularly with an institution like U of C in our ward, that we connect them to other schools. There is an elementary school principal in the ward that would recommend that their students go to Hyde Park High School. When I graduated from high school, Hyde Park had a magnet program. Right? We have disinvested in our schools, and we have shown our children how much we care about them by what we've spent on their education. I believe in peer mentoring, right? We've got kids who are doing really, really well, and connecting them to kids who are struggling a little bit is going to be another way that we're able to help our children learn, because kids know how to talk to each other. And unfortunately, there's an age gap that we haven't quite figured out how to crack the code to reach these young folks. So let's make sure we have young people talking to other young people. Extracurricular activities. I excelled in school because of the music program. If it wasn't for music, I probably wouldn't have been who I am today, which arguably is a pretty good person, right? And so I think it's important that we have programs that work with our children's interests. Coding, kids want to be YouTubers, so let's teach them how to produce those things, right? Community schools, I'm looking at the time. Community schools, I think it's important that our children learn outside of school. I believe it was Miseducation, Carter G. Woodson, who said that we are basically nuts for allowing those other folks to educate our kids. And so we should take the time to pour into those community schools, to give them those lessons, particularly the oral history that we have persevered and exceeded here in Chicago. That gets lost. 3 of the institutions that I worked at growing up are gone. The schools that my parents attended in their states where they grew up are gone. So when these monuments to our blackness disappears, our blackness disappears. So it's important that we pour into our kids, and then make sure that our work is multi-generational. Our seniors have a lot to pour in kids. We have allowed the divide to continue. We need to break that. Thank you.
Mr. Butler, 2 minutes.
Thank you. So some of the things I would like to highlight is some of the work we've done in the 4th Ward around schools. We have one of the best community schools in the entire city in the 4th Ward. It's not a charter school. It's not necessarily selective enrollment at all. That's Kenwood High School. Kenwood has an amazing leader with Karen Calloway at the helm, and we've had a tradition of powerful leaders at that school. So if you have community support, if you have competent leadership, you can take a community school from being the school of last resort to a school of first choice, and we need more of those in the community. Another thing we need to involve is the community, make sure the community is involved in schooling in our community. Now, I can take credit for some things, but I want to take credit and share the credit. Share the story, actually, about one community-led effort that turned around a failing school and turned it into a rising school. Diet High School was saved by the community. I want to shout out the work of Coco and others. Y'all, should give applause, yes. They did the hard work of making sure we had resources and we had marketing, we had strategy, and we have a brand new school in the community that is doing very well. We need to wrap our arms around the other schools we have in the 4th Ward, such as King College Prep, right? That is a selective enrollment school that is under-enrolled. Right now at King College Prep, there's only 600 students in that building. That building is built to house 2,000 students. 2,000 students. So we have to make sure, and I'm expanding the TIF district to make sure that we give additional capital funds to redo the school. We're also working with Dunbar, one of the premier vocational schools in the city that is also under-enrolled. Once again, it has an anemic 450 people in that building. Not everybody needs to go to college. If you want to, that's fine. But the trades, you can make a lot of money working with your hands. We have to bring back the nobility and the respect for the trades. I wasn't looking for somebody that had a PhD in December when the pipes were burst. I need somebody that had a licensed trade in plumbing. So we need to bring back the nobility in the trades and support the entire community, and we need to get back involved with our community schools.
Time. Thank you. The current administration's Green Recovery Agenda seeks to develop a building emission strategy to help achieve a 62% reduction in citywide emissions by 2040. In particular, addressing equitable decarbonization in low-income and people of color communities where climate crises are disproportionately impacted. How will your administration continue with these initiatives, including lowering the economic burdens of residents and businesses through energy efficiency, electrification, renewable energy, EV stations, and innovation and new construction? Mr. Mosley.
for me, it starts again with us being in a position to take advantage of our future path. This is a great opportunity for us to get those skills trainings, right? We talked about just how things are turning electrical. We see an opportunity there for our own homes, putting solar panels on our homes to reduce the cost of us so that we have more money in our pockets to do maintenance, to do other things, to just improve our quality of life. We need to make sure that our folks are trained to do those work from the installation and also just knowing that technology. We also see a big push for electric vehicles. Where are they going to be charged? Are those charging stations going to be in our community? We get to control that if we have the workforce and the knowledge to do that. And then lastly, I'll just speak to, again, we have to look at these as steps, as phases. We can't have big projects like the Red Line extension that's going to bring over 6,000 jobs, and then expect to get like 2,000 of those from our communities and not have the workforce that's there. That's not responsible leadership. It's part of my job and my duty to make sure that our community has those skill sets, that they are ready to take advantage of that opportunity so that we can be responsible for repairing, restoring, rehabilitating our own community.
Mr. Wooten.
I would ask you to repeat that question, but it might take too long. There is a lot that we must learn about going green. And I'm not going to sit here and just try to actually throw something out there, but there's something that we need to all sit down and talk about. Solar panels, electric vehicles, all that stuff have a very important part of our future. But this is something that we have to sit down and engage people and then bring some policies into position so we can actually truly understand what direction we're going to be going here. Because when you talk about the people in the community right now, most people are probably divided and don't understand exactly what direction we're going. In my office, I want to make sure we bring to the table a clear understanding of exactly what it is that's going to be presented so we all can come together and make a better decision on what direction we're going to go in. And I don't even need to use the rest of my minutes on this one here.
I'll take his actual. No, could you repeat it?
Mr. Hall, I will repeat the question.
Please do, please.
The current administration's green recovery agenda seeks to develop a building emission strategy to help achieve a 62% reduction in citywide emissions by 2040. In particular, addressing equitable decarbonization in low-income and people of color communities where climate crises are disproportionately impacted. How will your administration continue with these initiatives, including lowering the economic burdens of residents and businesses through energy efficiency, electrification, renewable energy, EV stations, and innovation in new construction?
Yeah, the first thing I want to do is make our ward environmentally friendly. Going down south was something that was very big because it taught you agriculture. Granddaddy had chickens, granddaddy had a farm. So growing up, you were not afraid to be green. And so the first thing we're going to do is educate our young people through the schools. Go back to what I said earlier. One school can make a big difference if you start grade level by grade level. When I was a child in school, we used to plant in the back of the classroom. We used to watch it grow. We used to go home with seeds, so forth and so on. If you don't educate kids and you don't educate families to be environmentally friendly, they're going to be afraid of the environment. The second thing we're going to do is look at allocation of lots so that we can have literally community gardens. My friend, my brother who ran against me, Brother Kirby, has a green thumb. Why not have these gardens on blocks where kids, again, can come, be friendly with the environment, recycle the rainwater, teach young people that it's okay to be environmentally friendly. The third thing we're going to do is look at the energy company. ComEd has a lot of grants and a lot of free material for your home, light bulbs and solar panel at a discounted rate. Fourthly, we're going to look at the solar panel manufacturing companies that are obligated to give us discounted panels and make sure that they are being done by black construction companies so that we can generate jobs and brighter homes. Fifthly, what we're going to do is work with businesses and make sure that they're not polluting through those who emit gases through whatever business they have. And then sixthly, we're going to improve our recyclable program. Our ward is nasty. We need garbage cans that are identified that you can put in there things for you to recycle. Seventhly, what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that our ward has the latest and the greatest grants available to business owners and residents that educates them further on how to have access to the next greatest thing with the environment. Last but not least, you all, we're going to participate together. We're going to bring back grants for block clubs to have neighborhood beautification on the blocks. When I grew up, Mayor Daley, though I disagree with a lot of things, had grants for block clubs to have the best flower beds. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Horn.
Here we go again. So the first thing we're going to do, so I know Angela Tovar. I know the author of the Green Recovery Agenda. We work together. And so the first thing we're going to do, since I gave her the title Chief Sustainability Officer, seriously, they didn't call her that, we're going to bring back the Department of the Environment. That is one of the things that we need to do, all the things that you were talking about, to make sure people understand what's going on. We also have to break the myth that we got to make a choice between the environment and jobs, because there are people that are perpetuating that myth. The African American community tends to be particularly vulnerable to respiratory diseases, because you think about, we're like always between big thoroughfares. Like in our ward, it's like Stony Island, all those fumes, Lakeshore Drive, all those fumes. That's why we need our trees. I want to be sure, though, that the system is built in a way that is equitable for us. This is a union town. And one of the things I worked on in Washington, and I worked on again as Chief Equity Officer, is making sure IBEW increase the number of African Americans who are part of the actual union, because we can't have, when it's time for the big construction jobs, they're going to be PLAs and only 10% of people in the construction industry are black. So that's why the rarest sight in Chicago is a black man on a construction site, because we're not in the unions, and there's a PLA that says you must hire a union company, you must hire unions, and we ain't in them. So when I was at YWCA, I actually started a partnership with IBEW to increase the number of women, because sisters need some jobs too, women and African Americans in the union. So that has to happen. We also have to be sensitive, though, to unintended consequences, right? We got to make sure we don't create a monopoly for ComEd. ComEd has never been our true friend, right? And so if everything's electric and ComEd isn't properly regulated, we're going to be cold in the wintertime. The other thing is, remember, there are black people who own buildings, own apartment buildings. The mandate to retrofit could have a disproportionate impact on black apartment building owners. And so just think about that.
Mr. Yancey.
All right. I think we have to train the workforce to be able to participate in this green economy, particularly those who are from the non-traditional workers, so formerly incarcerated people who have been typically frozen out of the workforce, and then incentivize those businesses who hire them. Access to grants for homeowners, small developers, family-owned apartment complexes, to be able to update their homes and develop them with under-sink hot water heaters and solar panels and rain collection so that we can recycle our water. We should encourage pedestrian safe development. 71st Street between Yates and Stony Island is grade level crossing. And so we want to do a lot of economic development with movie theaters and concerts at the lakefront and great stores that people can go to, but we need to make it safe and encourage people to walk and ride their bikes, and for young people to use those electric scooters that go way too fast, but to be able to make sure that we are encouraging people to walk and not drive. We need to make sure there are incentive owners for businesses, right? Again, we talked about redeveloping this corridor, but as we redevelop it, it's a prime opportunity to make sure that folks are developing with an eye on the future. Again, resources for solar panels and other green tech to be included in their business plan, I think, is going to be key. And then working with trade unions and tech companies to make sure they develop apprentice programs so that we can, again, prepare our this next generation of workers to be successful. We don't want to train them to build widgets from years ago. We want them to be able to look forward and be able to create an economy that allows them to build their families and provide deep roots in communities. And then educate young people on the importance of green technology. These young people are way smarter than us in a lot of different ways. And when you think about how easily and malleable they are when it comes to learning new things, they can impress a bunch on us by having us recycle in our homes even. And coming to recycling, we need to make recycling easier and less costly. The recycling system we have in the city has cost a lot of money and it hasn't reaped us the benefit. And so we need to create something that is simpler, more easy for people to understand and explain, and reduces all of our emissions and make sure that our communities are safe and clean. Thank you.
Mr. Butler?
I've worked on this issue previously, working for the Southsiders Organized for Unity and Liberation Soul. We advocated for the first weatherization program back in 2008 as a way to make sure we created new jobs for the community and make sure we save people money on their utility bills in their house. And while we're talking about issues of importance regarding the environment, I want to highlight an issue that no one's really talking about, but we need to talk about it. Our lead pipes in the city of Chicago. We have a larger problem than in the city of Flint, Michigan. The last year in which we used lead pipes, we were later than other cities. That was 1986. We have hundreds of miles in the city, in our community, where we're being served with antiquated lead pipes. And this is an issue regarding health and public safety. Why is lead a detriment to our community? Lead has been shown, even they banned it in paint. It messes up your cognitive development as an individual. And we have all these pipes on the south and west sides of the city that have not been changed out. They date back to the 1890s. So with this Biden administration has passed their $1 trillion infrastructure bill. I've been watching that closely because right now the city of Chicago is saying that they can't get this done until 2050. 2050. So we need to apply for the grants from the federal government and make sure this job is done quicker and faster. At the same time, it is a workforce development program. All these pipes that need to be replaced, we need a new workforce to take care of that workload. So we have to train our kids in the trades like Dunbar and other vocational schools to be ready for these new jobs that will be needed to take care of this stuff in our community. But the lead pipes, we need to talk about those issues. In terms of EV, I've already asked the Commissioner of CDOT, what are we going to do about proper placement of EV stations in our community so we're not left behind? They're working on that plan. They're going to have that disclosed to the public soon. I've been at the table doing the work. This ain't theoretical. I've been doing it. I will continue to do it. But I want to make sure we're protecting our community from the ill effects of industrialization and bad infrastructure in our communities. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Butler, next question in 2 minutes. Being elected as an alderperson will require you to join a city council committee. Traditionally, alderpersons are appointed to committees. However, if you could choose which city council committee you would join, which one would you choose and why?
I'll let you know. Let's go. So, one, real estate. You have to be in the room to see how these deals are being made, how they're selling the land across the city. You have to be informed because there's a lot of strange stuff going on right now. Why can't it that people from our community buy property for $1 when other developers are getting the same kind of benefits? The average cost of a house in my community is $600,000. $600,000 is the average cost. No one that has lived there for years can afford that. So we need to be at the table when these decisions are being made, so we can know how we can empower our residents in the community. Public safety is another one. I have to be at the table as we're talking about holding CPD and others accountable and being informed about the data about where we are as a city when it comes to public safety. I want to be involved in zoning. Oh, that's super important. We have all these major developments happening in the 4th Ward, and zoning is key. It dictates what's going to happen in the community or development. You have to be smart about this. This is where experience comes into play. I've been doing this. I understand the importance of that committee. So zoning, we said public safety. We talked about real estate. Education is important as well. I want to make sure that the city council is having an informed discussion about what we need to do to empower our community. And we need to have more hearings where CPS is actually coming to city council to inform us about what they're doing. And sometimes that is hard to get a straight answer for CPS about how are you going to support our community schools. So they need to be held accountable within council as well. So those are just the start of some of the councils I want to be involved in, because I understand what it takes to get things done in the city council. I understand what happens behind the scenes, and there's a lot of things we have to pay close attention to if we want to support our communities. Thank you.
Mr. Yancey, 2 minutes.
The committee I'm most interested in serving on is the budget committee. That's where the money is, right? And when we think about budgets as moral documents and we look at where our city government has chosen to spend its dollars, it's not in alignment with the people. And so I want to be able to be there to help figure out why we're spending $3.4 million on our policing system, but yet violent crime is going up and people don't feel safe. I want to make sure that we're talking about how we're allocating funds to support programs. For example, there's a pilot program that's happening in the South Shore to help condo owners renovate their homes and not be burdened with a significant increase in their assessment on the other side of that. We've also got homeowners who live in Jackson Park Highlands who, again, have this older home stock in need of repair, but to Prentice's point, these folks can't afford to be able to pay the kind of money it's going to take in order for them to repair their homes. So as we think about how we support neighborhood schools, how we support making sure the housing stock stays in neighborhoods, frankly, how we reopen mental health clinics and make sure that we have funding for those sorts of programs as we're talking about the root causes of violence. Everything that we've talked about today, there's a dollar sign attached to it. And our city budget determines how much of that money gets spent and where it gets spent. And it's important to have advocates who are on the ground, who have been affected by the decisions that this government has made over the last 20 plus years that has caused our communities to go down, that there's an advocate who says, no, we need to spend this money another way, or even simply ask a question about why we're doing these things, because so much of the budget related to our city council happens shrouded in mystery. There were public hearings that were held during the last budget cycle, but those public meetings you had to be invited to in order to come. We got to have much more transparency in that, and I want to make sure that if elected, that I will add that transparency and make sure that we are passing a budget that is reflective of our ideals and not those who are just the least of us. Thank you.
Ms. Hoy, 2 minutes.
So yeah, budget. If, whenever you're working in politics or wherever there's power, where the money is decided, that's where you need to be. And so I would want to be on the budget committee. I would also want to figure out how we could actually create a different committee, a city administration committee, because one of the things that we don't have is a city manager. And as a result, you don't have CDOT talking to the Department of Water, which is why we pave roads and then a month later have to dig it up to fix a 100-year-old pipe that breaks underneath. There's nobody in the mayor's office. It was the biggest shock of my life that we did not have somebody who was forcing these agencies to talk to each other. And so I think I want this city council to reset the way the city is governed. I want us to create our own committees. The mayor creates the committees. These mayors get elected and then they become kings or queens, right? It's like I want us to set the agenda. I want us to select our chairs. I want to be on the education committee because guess what? That got created and then it doesn't meet. Somebody created and said don't meet, right? And so I want it to be on the education committee and I want to make it meet. I want to be on public safety because it reminds me of the defense committee in Congress, right? So just like we don't know what's actually in the Department of Defense's budget and the Pentagon's budget, we actually kind of don't know what's in the law enforcement budget, and that cannot continue. And so we need, I want to be on that committee too, to figure out how we're spending those dollars to actually get some results. We can't keep investing in something that doesn't work. I also want to just go back to something about the lead pipes. If we had a city manager, if we had an administration committee, they would figure out a logical plan for actually rolling out the lead pipes. Right now, it's you call and we give you a lead pipe. We need to say, hey, y'all, on this block, we're going to be here, we're going to give you lead pipes, and then next week the Department of Forestry is going to come and give you your grass back because your yard gets torn up. So thank you.
Mr. Hall, 2 minutes.
Could you repeat the question one more time?
Sure. Being elected as an alderperson will require you to join a city council committee. Traditionally, alderpersons are appointed to committees. However, if you could choose which city council committee you would join, which one would you choose and why?
I will first lobby for finance. Chicago has the 5th largest economy in the world. I'm gonna say that again, the 5th largest economy, not in the country, but in the world. And so that means that budget has a lot of money, especially in the procurement budget. For those who don't know what procurement budgets are, those are those services that small firms can become real big, right? So I want to sit at the committee that determines where the small money goes to make a big impact in small businesses, as well as other infrastructure and other projects in the world. The second thing I would advocate for, raise my hand and say I would love to sign up for, is our education. As a son of an educator, it hurts my heart to see that Walter Payton, who was an MVP on the football field, is the only MVP school in the city. Whitney Young, Kenwood, we love them, but we shouldn't have a dilapidated school in the 6th Ward. Kids don't want to go to buildings where the grass ain't cut. Kids don't deserve to go to buildings where there are holes in the windows. There are schools that don't even have air conditioning yet. So how can we make sure that the 6th Ward and other wards have equitable, their fair share of equity, because the formula is fixed for us as black people to fail? Thirdly, I would advocate for public safety. We spent, let's run this back, over $1 billion in the span of 10 years for cops that didn't know how to behave, for cops that did illegal searches, for cops that were overly aggressive, for cops that literally impounded cars that shouldn't have been in there. And so what I want to make sure is that we have a safety plan that includes investment in people, making sure that people are served and protected, and making sure that our public safety plan also includes investment in mental health clinics so that people can literally go and have a conversation and not be cuffed or necessarily kill someone. Thank you.
Mr. Wooten, you have 2 minutes.
You know, there's over 20 committees that City Council has down in City Hall. And every committee has some importance about how our communities are governed. But my top 5 starts off with the Rules Committee. Because the Rules Committee determines exactly what's going to come on the floor and what's going to be voted on that's going to affect us as a people in our community. If they don't come off the Rules Committee, you'll never get to know about it. If it comes off the Rules Committee, it gives the aldermen the opportunity to get that 26 votes, and then it gets out here and it affects us as a people. So we got to understand how the system works. And the Rules Committee is one of the most powerful committees down in City Council. The next thing I would like to be a part of is public safety. Yes, I'm a Chicago police. I was a retired Chicago police officer, and public safety is very important. Again, you heard me earlier say that I'm not the standard type of police officer. Officer Gorey, she knows. I fought for police reform. I made sure that we actually had things put in place to ensure that the police officers, the negative officers that you hear Hall talk about so much, right, are not outweighing the good police officers out there working. So we have policies in place right now, such as the consent decree, COPA that replaced the IPRA. We have what you all voted for just in the primary elections, the district councils. So we can actually move forward to ensure that the police department is not out here doing the things that they were doing in the past. So public safety is number 2. Education. I want to make sure that we get engaged and get involved with our kids' education, and that we're properly educated and funded straight across the board for every school in the city, especially the 6th Ward. Budgeting. Budgeting is very important because guess what? That's how it all begins. That's how the funds begin to come on out into our communities. That's how the menu money is actually allocated. That's how we as a people know exactly what capital gains funds that's coming down from Springfield or from the federal government is impacting our community. Thank you.
Mr. Mosley, 2 minutes.
Thank you. I want to spend a lot of time in my ward, and so I want to deal with the committees that are going to be able to assist me in executing the plans that I have. So first and foremost, education. Schools are the #1 reasons why families stay or move somewhere. Our ward, the new 21st Ward, which is a merger of the old 34 and the old 21st Ward, is done so because it's at the area loss population. The way to reverse that is having great schools. That keeps our families here, and that also invites other families to come and participate and live in our community. Second of that, I would have to say, again, workforce development. Workforce development. I'm going to be putting our ward to work. We are having the development that is long past due for our ward, and I want to make sure that it's our people that are doing that work. Also, I want to serve on, I know it sounds a little bit different, but the parks, cultural, special events, cultural affairs, and recreation. That deals with our parks. We have to get back to the essentials of our communities. As an alderman, I want world peace, but I also want to know what I can control, what I actually have some influence is. That's schools, that's libraries, that's parks and so forth. So when we talk about where are our children going, what are they doing, we have some institutions there that we need to invest in and have better programming. And then lastly, I'll just say health and human services. Like when we talk about so many things, but most of all, mental health and mental wellness, what does that look like for our communities? To reopen these clinics is going to take me plus 25 other votes. But what can I do right here, right now in my ward?
Crime tops the list for voters in Chicago. What measures will you propose to fight crime in Chicago? Mr. Butler.
Absolutely. So I mentioned this earlier about expanding the mental health first responders model to the Fourth Ward, also having qualified violence interrupters in the community that can build valid relationships with members of the community to diffuse things before they come hot. We need to fight for our equitable share of police resources as well in the community. I'm going to tell you why. We were one of the communities that had a police district merge in 2012 under Rahm Emanuel. So we had a low crime district 21 merged with the 2nd district. We were told at the time we're going to have the combined officers about 500 and we're going to be okay. It's going to be like nothing ever changed. We're going to get more. That was a lie. We have less officers than we did 10 years ago. We have officers that are retiring en masse from CPD. So the call for service in our community is not getting addressed. There's not enough personnel to address those issues. Often in my community, I don't hear defund the police, I hear where are the police? People are living in our communities afraid and they feel as though their tax dollars are not being responded to properly. So I want to make sure we have a nuanced approach. I want to make sure, yes, we have equity and police resources in the Fourth Ward. I want to make sure we work with people like the University of Chicago, who has the largest private security force in the state. We have gotten them to expand their patrols into the north section of our ward, so they now are patrolling not only with their police force, but security ambassadors with the green lights on top of their cars to give extra peace of mind to our community. We replicate that with the private security force in Grand Boulevard, and we have the violent interrupters, so we have to be creative. But most of all, we have to address the systemic issues in our community. If our kids are not educated, what are they going to do? If they don't have good job opportunities, what are they going to do? So we have to be holistic as we discuss these issues about public safety in our community. Thank you.
Mr. Yancey?
Yeah, I would support the Neighborhood Policing Initiative, which is a project through the Chicago Police Department, which reimagines beat cops. And so instead of having roving vans of police officers who show up in the neighborhood, jump out and do stuff, right? We have officers who are embedded in the neighborhood who know that when Ms. Johnson's son is in crisis, that this is a need to call a mental health professional or an ambulance and not a person with a gun, right? When all you have is a gun, everything looks like a target, and we need to find another way that we deal with crime in our communities. I also support the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability and the district councils, again, which were voted on in this most recent election, because it's going to be community-based solutions to provide answers to these questions that we're asking about how do we feel safe in our neighborhoods. I think that the people who are closest to the issue have a lot of skin in the game and are more willing to do the work to save our communities when they know that their opinions and their thoughts are going to be valued and supported. There's an ordinance that's being pushed in City Council right now called Bring Chicago Home, which provides funding for the root causes of violence like homelessness and mental health resources, because it's not just people committing crimes, but it's people who have been under-resourced in their own lives. And when you have poverty, you tend to have crime, and it's about attacking those root causes to provide alternatives so that people can have vibrant and healthy lives, which then turn into vibrant and healthy communities. Also supporting community-based violence interruption programs. Somebody mentioned ECCSC. There's also programs like Target Area Development Corp, who are formerly incarcerated people who are in the communities, who have the respect of these young people and are the ones who are putting their lives on the line, preventing shootings, preventing retaliations from shootings. And it's, again, leaning on our community resources that are going to be so important to make sure that we're safe. And then lastly, leaning into our young people. So start before 6 and after 18, because our young folks have been set up for failure, and it's incumbent upon us to fix that. Black men are most likely victims of crime, and unfortunately more likely to be perpetrators of crime, and so there's a lot of work that we can do with our black male population to right this.
Time. Ms. Horn?
So everything Desmond said, but some additional things. One, I want to be careful with the expansion of UFC's police department. I want to be careful with the proliferation of private police forces. It's actually hard enough to keep regular CPD accountable. I don't need Barney Fife out there, right? And not that, and UFC police are not Barney Fife, far from it. But they don't have the same accountabilities. They are not subject to the consent decree. We got to actually do the consent decree and meet the requirements of it. I also want to talk about what happens after policing, right? We need to, I like Kim Fox, but something's going on with prosecutions and something's going on with the court system not holding people who are violent accountable and keeping them in jail. And some of that is happening on our streets, and we need to confront that. I mean, I'm not trying to throw anybody under a bus, but policing is one thing, then there's prosecution, and then there's the court. And that all has to be figured out. I also think we need to do some of the broken windshield things somebody was talking about, like nipping things in the bud. So things like loitering, things like reckless driving, which contribute to the sense of lawlessness, right? We got to nip that in the bud, because if people feel I'm not accountable when I keep running this red light or going 90 miles an hour down Lakeshore Drive, then what else are you going to test, right? And so that sense of lawlessness that is coming from us not enforcing these small things is a problem. I also, agree with the mental health. We have to deal with mental health and jobs. We got to demilitarize the police. That came out of that crime bill. Joe Biden helped that happen. So these guys are coming out. So they're driving around in SUVs that are basically tanks, right? They're in these flak jackets, right? You have to militarize the police and change the relationship between the police and the community. We need more beat cops. We need officer friendly back. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, one more time, what's the question? I think I know it, but I want to make sure I answer it right.
Crime tops the list for voters in Chicago. What measures will you propose to fight crime in Chicago?
Yeah,
Mr. Hall.
Let's talk about this. There are 9 exits going north and south on the day and Rhyme, 4 of which are gas stations. Walk outside, go down Michigan Avenue right now. You're going to see cops stationed on Michigan Avenue. I'm tired of the North Side getting love and South Side residents, especially in the 6th Ward, as if their lives don't matter. Tell the 2 cities. I want my cops stationed right there off the expressway, so that, again, when you get off, we're not going to necessarily scare you, but we let you know we see you. The second thing we're going to do is teach the art of empowering our citizens to have their own safety measures. When I grew up, Carlos at Cole Park on 85th and King Drive taught karate. Right there outside. Why aren't our kids learning the art of martial arts? Conceal and carry, it is the law. Let people know that these are your options to keep yourself safe. But thirdly, what we're not going to do is allow Officer Scary to run in the neighborhood. Every lawsuit that's filed against a CPD officer, somebody in city council signs that check off. Any officer caught in the act of demoralizing and or doing something illegal to a resident in the 6th Ward, you gone. If we got to go back to the days in which my card-carrying moments with Reverend Jackson and Rainbow Push and organizing downtown, we'd do it. Because cops should not be able to terrorize people, take a desk job, and then get back on the streets. The 5th thing we're going to do is make sure that, again, our neighborhood needs to be brighter. When it's a dark neighborhood, what good is a Ring camera if you can't see nothing? So we will invest in lighting, especially around our businesses. And let's focus on these gas stations, too. They get away with darkness, loitering, and they exploit our black women through prostitution rings and drug sales. Right. So, again, those are the gateways for violence. We're shutting it down. The last thing that we're going to do is we're going to celebrate the block clubs. Where's the thing at? Make it make sense.
Yeah.
Make it make sense. Make it make sense. Please, I was in my bag. Make it make sense.
There you go.
Now
Thank
check
you,
this
Mr.
out.
Hall.
I don't want the judge to find me guilty. So, Judge, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. It has to be accountable. Correct. We timer for a minute.
Judge, please stay there, okay? So I can see you. Because I was trying to figure out where that time came from, too.
Right.
No, you finished.
Go.
So because, all of that just happening, I'm going to ask you to repeat the question, okay? You reset.
Crime tops the list for voters in Chicago. What measures will you propose to fight crime in Chicago?
Okay, so the first thing we have to understand is that we can't police our way out of this situation. The police is not the all in all. We have to engage community. If we don't engage community, we lost the cause already. Remember, most of the crime that is occurring is occurring because someone in that community committed that crime. We have to hold people accountable, just like we hold our police departments accountable. We have to make sure that the families that is actually harboring these individuals that are committing these crimes in our community are held accountable. We have to make sure that the police department is actually doing foot patrol in our community. Make sure they're doing what we call beat integrity. We have to make sure that they're doing their job while we as a family are doing our job. Remember, government starts first in our homes. And if we're not actually assuming governorship over our kids in our homes, we're not doing our job. Just think about this here. Just the other day, the police department was actually chasing a stolen car. And the car got into a crash. Guess how old those individuals were? 11, 13, 15, and 17. Come on now. When do we say enough is enough? We have to make sure that we're actually putting in position the things that we're supposed to be putting in position, such as mental health services to these young people in our communities. We got to make sure that mental health facilities are in our schools. We got to make sure that we're tackling the trauma that is actually causing our communities to be so violent. This is not something that we can police our way out of. We've already fought for dealing with aggressive police officers. In 2006, when Laquan McDonald was killed, I was one of the ones that spoke out against police corruption. And I was on the job. I got booed in my retirement party. But guess what? That was great because it allowed me to bring 60 Minutes and it allowed me to sit on a consent decree, that task force under Rahm Emanuel. That right now, we're saying that we're not going to be policing the way we used to police.
Time.
But yet, we need to work together. Thank you.
Time. Thank you. She left, so we had to do the time. Okay, Mr. Mosley.
Yeah, so I want to start by talking about there's a Community Safety Coordination Center that resides in the city of Chicago. It's supposed to be a coordination effort across multiple agencies. Now, I will tell you from my experience as being one of the state regulators for cannabis that you need its own office. Working with multiple departments like cannabis had 14 different agencies that we had to work through to constantly prioritize equity. If we have to constantly prioritize safety, it has to have its own office because there are multiple priorities in each individual department and agencies that they are trying to figure out how to all make it work. It has to have its own budget. It has to have input from citizens and experts that can make recommendations. That's something that I would work with the city council to actually bring forward. Another thing is that I hear from my residents, my constituents, that they want police that live next to them. But we are constantly seeing a shortage of officers. One, I want to explore the situation of where I keep hearing there are sworn officers that are doing administrative jobs that they don't have to be sworn officers to do. I want to see what's happening there, if we can get those officers back on the street, or what's the solution. But even more so, we know we need to build out a bigger force of police in terms of filling these roles, better candidates. I want to use churches and nonprofits to train to the test so that folks from our community can pass that test and join those forces.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all. You all have done a great job. You all have heard them. Let's give them a round of applause. It takes a lot to run for alderman in this office, so you guys have done a great job. Okay, so we're going to have a 1 minute for each candidate to do a closing. So we'll start off with you, Mr. Butler, 1 minute.
Well, everyone, thank you for the opportunity to listen to the platform policy position we all have as candidates. I enjoy that the other wards have their candidates here in person to address and share with you their issues. I'm going to go ahead and address this issue head on about my candidate, Lamont Robinson. He is not here because his handlers don't want him to be here. They feel as though they have a lead, they get all the money they need to win this race, so therefore they don't want any hiccups, so he doesn't want to debate in public. He came to a South Loop debate last week after saying he wasn't going to be there, read the opening statement, left, and only left a statement to be read by the organizers. That's how accountable, accessible he is. Also, transparency. The biggest crock that's out there is that he saved Mercy Hospital. He did not. He did not. Respect the people that did. Coco, Lagenia Burns, they did that. Other elected officials were at the table too. But the real question right now is the sustainability of Mercy Hospital. Did we really save it? No, because it's a new institution, right? And we allowed the institution that was closing down to select them without any community accountability. That building is not safe. It needs millions of dollars of repairs in that infrastructure. So the story is not over. So do not allow democracy be taken away from you by special interests, by somebody that doesn't know the community, is only using the lily pad in the swamp
You're next.
to jump to one position to the other. Thank you.
I love the Fifth Ward. It's a beautiful place. If you ever have an opportunity to come by, come visit South Shore Cultural Center or The Point. It'll change your mind. I'm running because I love it, right? South Shore has made me, Hyde Park has educated me, and I'm grateful for this opportunity to share with y'all today. And I'm here respectfully asking for your vote. You know, my work has been rooted in community, centered in community, and to Prentice's point, groups like Coco and Lugenia Burns Hope Center are organizations that I've organized with and alongside in order to bring transformation to our city. My work in creating a public safety system that is fair and equitable is still ongoing, but it's been my life's work as a child of a police officer. And the reason why that is important is because I know how to live in the space between poles, right? There are different sides of our discussion of our argument about how we keep each other safe and healthy and wealthy, but I think we have to bring everybody to the conversation to do that. Having led and created coalitions more than one time and been successful, that's what I bring to this, bringing everyone to our conversation to make our city safe. Thank you.
So I have really enjoyed this particular forum because one of the things that it does is really highlight none of us are going to operate in a vacuum. You know, there's a lot of talk about I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. We're actually going to learn to count to 25 because we have to work with partners. The South Side has a lot of issues. And I need partners in the 6th Ward. I need partners in the 21st Ward. I need partners in the 9th Ward. I need partners in the 10th Ward. I need partners in the 4th Ward. This is how we're going to fix the South Side. And for the black community, we got to work with the West Side, right? Because those are the two major pockets of the African American diaspora. And we have to work together because the needs of the West Side and the needs of the South Side are the same needs, right? And we have to work together. There are some tough times coming ahead. I'm telling you, affirmative action, those minority set-asides are going to become illegal. This is a court that is out to get us, and the way they're out to get others. You didn't do the yellow thing for me. So anyway, it's all good. It's all good. I want to thank you for hearing from me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Hogg, 1 minute.
Yeah, could you repeat the question? I'm just playing. As we get ready to go home, you all, and go our separate ways, first of all, I want to say thank you. Thank you for spending the time with us this afternoon. As you get ready to go vote, maybe today, tomorrow, but April the 4th is a day that we remember a martyr, a man who had a dream. And I'm asking that those of you that are watching, those of you that are here, that live in the 6th Ward, vote for a dream of a ward that you dreamt of. A ward where you're dreaming that you can go down the street and be safe. I want you to vote for a ward that you're dreaming for kids to have the best educational experience. And I want you to vote for a ward in which all of us can enjoy. Our partners in the 5th Ward, 6th Ward, 7th Ward, whatever ward. A home where everybody can be happy. And so I want everybody not to hesitate, but to punch 58. Because we got some building to do. And I appreciate all of you all, and I thank all of you all. And I want you all to know this, that everybody has given everything that they had. take it easy on us. We got a little bit left in the tank, but don't hesitate. Punch
Time.
58.
Mr. Wooten, you have 1 minute.
I want to thank you all for coming out today. These debates has been very informative and it's been, very strong supported. My name is Richard Wooten, and I'm running because all my adult life I've been a servant. Served in the United States Army, served on the Chicago Police Department, served as the president of Greater Chatham Alliance, pastor. Everything about me has always been about serving. And I do that well because I give my all. I'm not reckless. I'm not someone who don't understand how to engage people. I understand that it's the power of the people that drive me. I'm not picked by the machine. I've been selected by the people. The people is tired of this here chaos that we're experiencing right now. 12 years of drama. 12 years of chaos that we can no longer take place. What happened to my 32nd one? Well, okay, so since my time is up, we know what to do. Punch 52.
Mr. Mosley, 2 minutes.
Thank you so much.
1 minute.
I'm truly humbled to have this opportunity to return the investment that my community has made in me. I began this work as a teenager, the same age that my parents had me when they were teenagers. And so since that moment, my community has told me to go out, learn the best, bring it back, to do good. And I've been doing that since 14. I'm 31 years old now. I've been able to deliver results, and particularly from government, in working it as it should work for us. As we move forward into this next wave of the new 21st Ward, I'm committed to the leadership that will communicate, that will involve, and that will, again, deliver the quality of life that we deserve. That starts with an office that fights for you, that has destinations in your ward and for others to come and contribute to, and for us to see our dreams, our opportunities, and a pathway to it. So I'm asking folks to punch 55 so we can thrive.
Time. Thank you. Thank you. So we have some audience questions. We're only gonna do 3. So this is for any candidate that would like to go ahead. Oh, thank you. Because we're strapped for time right now, so we're only going to do 3. So what will you do to have a CHA comply with employee Section 8 voucher holders to use their vouchers to purchase homes?
Are these like quick answers?
It's questions from the audience.
So how much time?
You have 1 minute.
Do you just raise your hand?
Yeah, whoever. 1 minute.
So I'm obsessed with increasing home ownership and getting tenants into home ownership. And this CHA program is exactly the pathway that existed so that people who are in CHA, that it's used almost as transitional housing so that you can get to the place where you can actually buy a home. The thing that's important, though, because I've heard a lot of it here, CHA is a sister agency. It has its own board. There is only so much we're going to be able to do in city council with schools, with libraries, with parks, with CHA, because they are sister agencies with their own boards. Now, that doesn't mean you can't work with people. I know Tracy. I think I would be able to work with Tracy to get things done. So that is sort of the, you can't get a 3-year-old to do anything. If you have had a 3-year-old, you know this. So you got to figure out how to get people to see the commonality of interest so that they will do things with you and for you to help the people that we're all supposed to be helping, like getting folks into homes using this special CHA program.
Time. Anyone else want to touch on that? Okay. Mr. Butler.
So
1 minute.
to Tina's point, yes, you can't do much about it. So I'm hoping for, with the change in administration, change in CHA leadership. So we have people that are more accountable to the community, because right now they don't respond. When we have issues with CHA properties, they're not responsive as much as they need to be. They need to be involved in the community on a more substantive level. Also, they need to speed up about the promise for plan for transformation. It has taken us 20 years to get our housing back, and we're still not done yet. So I hope with the new administration, we have leadership that's accountable and responsive and fast track the plan for transformation, make sure we're bringing affordable housing back to our communities.
Thank you. And I'll proceed to the next question. How active is your campaign in engaging the City of Chicago's loyal voters, seniors, and the veterans?
All right. Excuse me. It's cold and flu
1
season.
minute, okay?
Thank you. All right. So my campaign is actively seeking conversations with voters, particularly seniors in the ward. I mentioned, I think it was earlier here, our ward is about 80% voters over 50, and about 80% of those are over 60. And so the people who have been showing up, you know, election after election have been our seniors, and so I refuse to discount them because it's just a level of experience and activism that comes from that. I also believe in creating a multi-generational space, and so I've got seniors and young people on my campaign because, again, I think that our young people have a lot to learn from our seniors, particularly around civic engagement, which isn't taught in schools, and unfortunately there are very few avenues for them to be involved. And so we are actively seeking relationships with seniors and have seniors and young people working in our office. Thank you.
Mr. Wooten, 1 minute.
Not only in my campaign, but even in, before campaigning, I've been very actively engaged with my seniors. We do movie night with the seniors, we do bingo with our seniors, and this has been something I've been doing almost 10 years now with the seniors. When we talk about dealing with veterans, we have a lot of veterans in the 6th Ward, and the veteran population has been coming out. We've been very engaged with our veterans. I visited some of our most senior veterans in our ward. We have a 103-year-old veteran who lives in the ward, and then there's another 102-year-old veteran who lives in the ward. And when you're actually dealing with these elderly people at that age, who never received any type of recognition, right? It's sad. So being able to go around, talk to my seniors, and being able to actually deal with them and support them, it brings warmth to my heart and it brings joy to their lives. The youth, we do all kind of programs with the youth. We do, we have with the police department, we've actually initiated the Nights in the Park with the youth. We have youth going out to the parades and things of that nature. There's a whole lot of stuff we do.
Time.
Could I add one just quick thing?
It's
going to be really quick. We need an Office of Veterans Affairs.
Okay.
The city doesn't have an Office of Veterans Affairs.
Go ahead, Mr. Hall.
One of the things that we've already been doing as a pastor is we go. That's what the Bible says, go ye therefore. And so we've established cafes inside of our senior buildings. We've been doing that for a long time now. We bring a chef. He prepares fresh meals, not these boxed up things that show up, especially around election time. The second thing we've done is we've walked closely with seniors around their issues. A lot of seniors need someone that can help them with their phones, help them connect with city services, and that's what we do in the cafe. Now, when it comes to our veterans, one of the things that really disturbs me is that we need to have a memorial park in the 6th Ward. And I'm looking forward to using some of that park space, whether it's already there or maybe carving out new space to honor our veterans. St. Leo the Great, where I went to grammar school, is now a veteran living facility, which even though it's not in the ward, these are my friends in which we send support there too. So we want to honor our veterans by giving them the memorial that they deserve and making sure that they have the services that they need mentally, emotionally, physically, and even spiritually so that they can live with the dignity they deserve as a veteran.
Time. Thank you. Mr. Mosley, you have 1 minute.
I just quickly say, according to the Commander Littleton, the 21st Ward is home to the only majority, predominantly black, VFW post 2024. So we've been already engaging with them early on in the campaign. We had a conversation specifically with our veterans. They invited us back to have a community outreach day where we had a family dinner to talk about the solutions to our issues in the 21st Ward. Additionally, our seniors are the ones who have maintained our ward and has made it as strong as it is today. I want to honor that legacy and build upon it. That's why I value their voice. I seek their wisdom and their counsel, and they'll be a part of our community planning committee that helps determine the plans and futures that we have for our ward.
Great, thank you. So we're going to have closing remarks from Pam. You come on up. Okay, so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here come the judge.
Yeah.
As of Monday, she will be a judge. Let's give it up for her. All right.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And that's about how long I'm going to take. I want to thank you, candidates, for showing up. This was very much appreciated, and we hope that you as an audience learned